Hey everybody, and welcome to the Max Resistance Roundtable. I am Brian. 49 is ill this week, so I'm going to be running the show, or hosting the show this week. Our guest this week is Marc Stevens, the author of the books Adventures in Legoland and Government Indicted. We also have our round table of panel, which some of them aren't here, but hopefully they'll show up soon. We've got QK Ultra in the room, and we've got Justin in the room, and we are also broadcasting live on FPRN. You can listen in live now via the call-in number, which is 712-423-4365. If you have any questions for us, you can call in with your questions at 567-314-9296, or you can Skype us at FPRN Radio Live via Skype. So with that being said, again, I'd like to welcome everybody to the roundtable. And Marc, how are you doing this evening, buddy?
I'm doing well. I'm inside. If I turn my camera around, you could see the yard where it is a balmy 110. Yeah, I'm glad to be inside, but I appreciate the opportunity. It's good to speak with you again. It's been a while.
It's a pleasure having you on. Why don't you give the roundtable a little information about yourself, some background, tell us about your books and what it is that you do.
Well, what I've been doing for a while in the books and the radio show is just an extension of all that, is helping people who are being attacked by bureaucrats defend themselves so that they can go in, whether it's a traffic ticket, whether it's an IRS or a tax matter, or, my gosh, the heinous crime of possession of marijuana, so that instead of getting scammed by a lawyer who's just going to go in and make some kind of deal and have them waive, if it's a drug situation, have them waive all the money and whatever property the cops have stolen from them, they could do it themselves. And most of the time most of the time do a better job themselves than having to pay a lawyer. So after so many years of helping people with that, I wrote a book about it called Adventures in Legoland. And so all the names are real, but I did a thing where I kind of switched things around. Earl Carroll is actually not a cop; he's a federal judge in Phoenix. So it was kind of a silly thing to do. I guess I was a little bit worried about maybe being attacked, because I was constantly under attack back then, and wasn't looking to really invite that again. And after a number of years, I started doing the radio show, the No State Project, which is really just a culmination of what I do during the week, which is helping people defend themselves against bureaucratic attacks.
And that originated on the radio network, We the People Radio Network. Is that correct?
Actually, that was after We the People was after Republic Radio. So John was kind enough to invite me on to do my own show, I think in 2006 or 2007. And so we started there, and then I moved over to We the People with Wes and Danny. And then that blew up, and it became AFR. And then I, because of where I was, I wanted to be able to do the show with the professional equipment, and I was using Ernest Hancock, who does Declare Your Independence.
Yeah, I love Ernest, of course.
Ernie's great. He allowed me to use his studio, which was really cool, and because of we were using the ISDN, I think that's what it is, the old radio line. I couldn't connect directly to AFR anymore, and so because of that, there's no bad blood or anything. I just wasn't. I was asked not to, if I couldn't originate on there. So now the show is on LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network, and what we do every week is most of the calls we take have to do with people who are being attacked and how we can get them, to a positive resolution, whether it's making a smoking deal, which really sucks, but, sometimes that's the best hand that you're going to get, though most of the time the things get tossed out. And it really comes down to looking at it like, Lysander Spooner's no Constitution, no authority, no treason, just looking at them as that there is no government, there are no states, there are no citizens. It's from a standpoint that they're just people. and just questioning on the evidence that they have, or questioning all the arguments that the prosecution or the police or the judge are using to justify their attack against you, and it all just collapses. I mean, there is no evidence, and so that's really in a nutshell what I do. You know, it's always from a standpoint that they're just people. You know, for what we can prove. You know, we can prove Obama is he looks like a guy. He's animated. We're pretty certain he's not an android, but they're just people. And taking it from that standpoint and not accepting any sacred cows, that most people will accept that if you're physically in Arizona, well, then the laws of Arizona apply to you. Well, I don't accept that, and you've heard them all. You've broadcast them, Brian. The call of shames. I mean, I've spoken to how many bureaucrats. Have you ever heard me when I asked a bureaucrat for evidence that the Constitution laws apply to me just because I'm physically in Arizona or Canada or wherever, and you know what evidence they have? Have you ever had them actually answer me and give me proof?
No, of course not. No, it's always because the law says so. They use the circular reasoning and just go back because the law says so. That's why it applies, because it applies, plain and simple. Get over it.
Yeah, it's the laws that we created there, tough guy. We said that they apply, therefore they do. Oh, so you believe in magic. And I actually had somebody in Canada a couple of weeks ago say, well, the laws may be magic. And I just, at that point, my ability to tolerate the stupidity and the arrogance just dropped. And I had to end the call. And speak with the supervisor. I said, "Oh, the guy's thinking it's magic." Okay, all right.
They're just well. That's what you get when you deal with psychopaths. Wanted to break away for 1 second just to welcome Red Pill Revolution to the chat. Red Pill, welcome to the round table. Say hello and meet Mark Stevens.
Hi, good afternoon, guys. How's everyone doing? Nice to meet you, Mark.
Good to meet you.
Great, great.
So, what else are you working? Are you working on anything big right now, Mark? Anything we should know about?
Well, we have an ongoing thing that has to do with basically helping people engage the system, whether as an activist, strictly as an activist, to expose these people for what they are, or people can participate in this project to learn how to engage the system at a low-risk level, so that if they are attacked more viciously, that they're able to defend themselves properly and have a lot more confidence when they do it. So it's the No Stay Project traffic study. And I picked traffic, so where people, or parking ticket study, where we're looking at something like a parking ticket where you're going to engage the psychopaths and their system, but, you know, so you purposely get a ticket. And if you lose, if they, you know, okay, you just throw the 50. You know, I'm not literally, but you throw the $50 at them and you can walk away. So the risk is very minimal, but you're making all the same attacks, or collateral attacks. I don't mean, you know, with a gun. You're making all the same challenges, but you're doing it with such a low risk that at the very most it's all, you know, going to be $50-$60.
Unless they hold you in contempt.
Unless they hold you in contempt, which so far no one's been held in contempt for a parking ticket or one. You know, so, and it's also for people who, just as an activist, want to be able to do that and engage the system and question them, because they always try to tell you, why don't you ask these questions in court? I'm like, well, because I don't want to go to jail for contempt for asking a question.
Right. Go ahead.
You know, I've already done that. I know that they're going to start yelling and screaming contempt. So I'd rather ask you on. I've told them point blank. I'd rather ask you on the phone, because frankly, it's safer. But I've wanted to. And then I've wanted to get the judges into some kind of hearing, but that's just not going to happen. You got to be a realist, and that's why I've mentioned, you know, another thing that we're working on is getting people involved with the insurance companies and getting the information, because most of them don't bond anymore, but they do have self-insurance, and then they have additional insurance, and so far, you know, there has been some positive feedback from the insurance companies that I've gotten. So what we're doing is encouraging people to get the information on how to file a claim against the insurance, because judges are absolutely immune. That's true. So if you try to sue them in court, then no, you're not going to get anywhere. But they are covered by their insurance policies.
So
So
this is
that
the bonds that I've heard. I've heard of this before. That judges and even police officers have to sit on a bond. And
they used to. They used to. The municipality or the county, whatever they're calling it, or province keeps. They have their what's called risk management, and so they self-insure. And then a lot of times that policy is underwritten by a real insurance company. And some like in Scottsdale, they self-insure up to 2 million, 2 million, and then everything above 2 million is insured by Star Indemnity. And I think they're headquartered out of Dallas. I'm not sure. And they were the ones that actually told me if there's collusion between the judges and the prosecutors, they will lose their coverage. And what's nice about this, if you look at in New Hampshire, where we're going to be filing a claim real soon, there is actually a procedure that if you get past the initial hurdle, that there is you would have kind of an administrative evidentiary type hearing with discovery and things like that to determine if the state agents actually did hurt you without their lawful authority.
are you doing this with Ian Freeman and those guys out there, or is this with somebody new?
This is with not someone new. He's been on the show a number of times, and I've spoken about it quite a bit. Bill is being attacked by some state agency because he's doing business, his Twin Mountain Country Store. He's doing business without complying with any of the state laws. You know, he's not collecting taxes and stuff like this. He's not collecting things from his employees. He's not keeping records, and so they attacked him. Yeah,
I love it.
So I got a lot of love for Bill, and so they attacked him almost 2 years ago. The New Hampshire Employment NHES. What the hell does that stand for? If you give me a second here, I've got it right here. So it's the New Hampshire Employment Security. So it's like the State Department of Social Security, where they want all these records kept, and and he's got to collect taxes or steal from his own his clients or employees. And they didn't like that, so they attacked him. So we were able to get quite a record. We have, they actually just sent me all the CDs, and I have it on video of a hearing that took place over 20 hours. And I have them admitting that there's no evidence of jurisdiction. I have lead counsel for the the NHES, New Hampshire Employment Security Department, lead counsel on record, recorded, admitting that there wasn't any evidence of jurisdiction. I have George Kopatis, who is the chairman of the New Hampshire Employment Security, admitting that there was no evidence. And then I have of course, the employees admitting that. I've also gotten 2 deputy attorney generals. One of the calls I posted on my website last week at markstevens.net. 2 deputy attorney generals admitting no evidence, that they can't prove their laws apply. So that's what we're going to be putting in the claim against the insurance, the risk management, that they are knowingly proceeding against Bill without any evidence of jurisdiction.
Without any evidence of jurisdiction, right, which is the number one thing that you must have to proceed, period.
Right. You can have, let's say, a legitimate crime that was committed, and you could go through a 3-year trial, and if it turns out that there was a jurisdiction defect, the whole slate is wiped clean. It's a mistrial. There was no jurisdiction. So it's a very serious issue, and what's unfortunate about a lot of people that I have worked with in Keene, it doesn't seem, and I'm not saying Ian, it's not, because I did work with Ian on that, that wanted to, I was I was on video like this, and we were doing a hearing.
I watched that. That was a guy just gets up and comes over and just turns you off. I'm done with you.
Yeah, we're done over here. We're gonna just turn, and what's surprising though is, well, this is what, all right, for those who haven't seen it, and I recommend it's worth it. If you're going through one of these situations, I really recommend watching at least the first hour, because you'll learn how to engage someone who's extremely hostile to the issue of evidence. Because at one point, you could say people can throw whatever criticism they want at me. That's fine. I can deal with that. It's fine, and they should be criticizing. But what you can't criticize, I think, is the fact that I got an experienced hearing officer to say, I don't need evidence. So, you remember when he said that, Brian?
Yes,
Yeah,
my jaw dropped. I just like, are you kidding me? I almost fell out of my chair. And
so, well, the full line that he said, and now mind you, if you haven't seen this video, the prosecutor whose burden of proof it was to prove jurisdiction, and no one's disputing that, she sat there like a statue, didn't say one word. I'm accusing her of prosecutorial misconduct. She could lose her, she could be disbarred. She just says not one word in her own defense because she knew that the psychopath Michael King, the hearing officer, was going to do it all for her. So what he said was, and he was very upset when he said it, I don't need evidence. I have a statute. And I said, well, objection. You don't have any evidence from the prosecution to prove it applies in any shape or form here. So it wasn't too long. So when you confront them on their sacred cows and you just stand on where is your evidence, they'll just cut you transmission. Well, we'll just get rid of Mark. We'll just turn that feed right off. And he cut my phone line too.
It would have almost been better if you could have actually been there, because then maybe he wouldn't be able to just turn you off. But it was what it was.
Yeah, I think that it would have made, if I could have been there, at least I could have kept Ian on what I thought was the better path, where in my experience, having done hundreds and maybe 1,000 proceedings like this on the phone and in person, or working on from the background with somebody setting the strategy, the tactic, and working on scripts and doing role playing, it's far more effective to look at the evidence to prove that it applies, as opposed to arguing what the statute means. Because, interpretation is never as effective as application. And yes, you may win at the Supreme Court level if you're lucky to be able to get there. So, unfortunately, what Ian did was start arguing what the statutes meant, as opposed to holding this prosecution to their burden to prove it applied in the first place.
Right. I watched a lot of that, and I was thinking the exact same thing myself. And I'm like, well, if you brought Mark on to help, why aren't you doing what he said? So.
Well, I think what it came down to in Ian's defense, and Ian, I consider, I think we're friends, and we've known each other for a number, at least 5 years. I just think he saw after an hour, we couldn't even get the witness sworn in, and to me that's effective, because the longer I can keep them from swearing in the witness, the better, and because you're that much closer to them giving you a hearing. Oh, they had an opportunity, If I had been there, I think I could have maybe kept him on the path more, where they would say, like they have so many times, screaming, oh, Mark can't participate anymore. He's just disrupting by asking questions of evidence that the prosecution is supposed to have anyway. So that's disrupting. How dare you hold the prosecutor to their burden of proof, you son of a... But there were some other circumstances, that I was not aware of in that, Ian was running for office, and that kind of jams him right into and makes it. But I was able to still avoid that for the most part. But after I was disconnected, that really reared its ugly head, and I think by sticking to application, you would have done a lot better. It may not have changed anything, but we don't know. It is instructive in how to deal with a so-called neutral hearing officer who's very hostile. So I encourage people, if you haven't seen it, watch at least the first hour, because that's what I get so many. Well, what do you say when the judge just says that? And you have all the objections, and the way I've handled it, what I thought was pretty effective in that video.
Have you been working with the demo anymore here lately? I saw a video the other day of, I think it was a Fox News clip, where they were actually talking about cop block, and I think they were talking about the cop block out of Texas. Have you seen this yet?
I haven't seen that yet, but I know that a demo. I'll give him a plug right there. He's with the Sons of Liberty Mint.com selling silver. He's actually working with an attorney now. They shut down my habeas corpus, and it's unfortunate he did the time, but and it was okay. I have had his permission to do the habeas corpus. He had no problem with it. He just was doing things in a completely different way than the way I would have done it. The basic operating presumption that they go by, and you can hear all my call of shames, and I call it the same old lie world tour. You can hear me talking to dozens of persecutors, prosecutors and state employees, attorney general, deputies. The spokesman out of Canada for the attorney general's office. They agree, and everyone knows that their operating presumption is very, very simple. It's got nothing to do with your name. They don't give a damn about your name. They will kill you without knowing your name. They don't care. The operating presumption is if you are physically in Canada or you're physically in the U.S. or Australia, then the laws of that government apply to you. And I would rather attack that and ask them, that argument, because that's the foundation that their house of cards is built on. Look, you're here, right? You've been to court. Anybody's been to court, and you're challenging jurisdiction. The judge, you're here. Oh, so my mistake was coming here. Otherwise, you wouldn't have jurisdiction.
Right. Well, you have to go there, because if you don't go there, then they'll send men with guns to drag you there in chains and a nice orange suit.
Well, sure, and that's why if in the motion templates that I have now, I have right in the beginning that I'm not appearing, but I am participating on a threat, duress, and coercion, and it drives the judges crazy. They get very upset. Who the hell is threatening you?
You are now.
What's the matter with you? What are we in the twilight zone? Look, and so I've said this. There was a guy here in Mesa last year, a little over a year ago, and he got pretty perturbed at this. This exalted man with the black dress on, that I'm saying that the threat, duress, and coercion. I said, what would have happened if I didn't come in today as ordered? Well, we would have. You see my point? So who's threatening me? You. Hey, if you don't look, and I've told them, if you don't like me characterizing it as threat, duress, and coercion, there's a very simple solution over here, tough guy. Quash your order. Let me go out of here unmolested, and you'll never hear from me again. Unless one of these cops decides it's my lucky day to be saved or, protected that day. But he wasn't going to do that. And I said, well, if you're not going to drop the threats, then don't get upset that I'm pointing it out.
Red Pill has a question for you. Go ahead, Red Pill.
Oh, yeah, yes. I was reading the synopsis of your book, Mark, and I noticed it said about proving the world's biggest hoax. I was wondering, what was that referring to?
World's biggest hoax, I think, has to do with the fact that there is a government and that there are governments and that the states actually exist.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just wondering if there was a specific or okay.
No, Mark doesn't go along the same lines of hoaxes as we do, which is another reason why I wanted to bring him onto the roundtable, just to give a little bit of something different as well. But again, his form of hoaxes are that people with shiny badges think that they have. Or people are masquerading around as a state or a county or a city or a country when they're just another human being like you and me.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, just people.
I'm sorry.
Well, it's just so much of the world and the situations that we get caught up in are made clearer, and you can better understand how things are working, and especially once you know that, how to defend yourself when you just look at them as people. They're accountants. Let's say the IRS agents, they're just accountants. They're just men and women. They're very substandard men and women at that. But the cops are just people. Violent, yes. And all they have are these I think I have it on the show, on the shirt. Reification is a hell of a drug, and that's what I use to explain that the hoax, that there are citizens, that there are states, and that there are governments, and if people understand that they're just people. If the average person just understood that they were just people, or to look at it maybe in another way, they're all just private businesses. And I know about the whole Dun and Bradstreet, but if you look at them as just private businesses, most of the fog starts to clear, and it really makes sense. And so now it's easier to start challenging these sacred cows. I've had prosecutors, when they're confronted with this, look, here's the presumption or the argument. If you're physically in Texas, then the laws of Texas apply. And most people are going to say, yeah. And I've had prosecutors when I say, well, do you have any actual proof? Can you prove that argument? And they'll think, and like, well, I wrote about it in the book, Clark Askins. Well, isn't it just a given? How many people are in prison right now on a given? I can't accept this. But looking at them as just people or just private businesses makes it a lot easier to understand what's going on and be able to go in and challenge these sacred cows and not feel like you're in the twilight zone or that there's something wrong with you because you're challenging their basic presumptions, because they'll gaslight you almost every single time. Come on, Mark, are you seriously asking me to prove the laws apply? Yes, I am.
We got a caller on Skype. I believe his name was Joey, and he said that actually you helped him out one time, Mark. Joey, are you there? Go ahead, Joey.
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Now we're getting a bunch of feedback, Ryan.
Yeah, he's got the maybe he's got the feed going behind him.
I hope not. You there, Joey?
Going behind him.
I hope not. You there? Yeah, go ahead with your question for Mark. You there? Okay, I'm sorry. We'll have to just drop him. Hopefully he'll call back and we'll actually be able to talk to him.
Technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties, as always.
Google Plus.
That's what you get by having me on, Brian. You know the history of my show.
It's not you, brother. It's just technology in general. Everybody here is probably going to blame it on Google, but that was a Skype issue that time. It had nothing to do with Google.
I had another question for Mark.
Go ahead.
How do you feel, from your knowledge, your perspective, from all the legal knowledge you possess about the police, the escalating police state going on right now, with regards to the NDA and all of that stuff? How do you feel about that stuff? I was wondering.
Well, it's hard to, I know that they are escalating. And it has to do with a lot of the grants that the feds are giving, from, Homeland Security. And you see this militarization where you got towns of like 2,000 people or less, and they're getting tanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I personally think, and I can only speak with my little scope of the world, considering how many people that I've worked with and continue to work with and how more, new people contact me every day, I think because of the internet, and the fact that you can take a cell phone and you can stream police brutality as it's happening, and the police can grab that phone and destroy it, the video's gone. The feed is not a damn thing they can do about it, and it could be disseminated to 1,000 or 2,000 or more, hard drives or clouds or drop boxes, and there's nothing they can do. And I think that because more people are seeing that happening, there's more and more people that are questioning this nonsense, and they're seeing through. The cops, the government, if you want to call them that, they don't work for you. we work for them. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's conspiracy fact. That we are forced to pay them. The whole, so what I see is that more and more people are waking up to this, and there's going to be a corresponding pushback from the police and government when people are not complying. Unfortunately, there's more people participating probably in these demonstrations, which is where we see a lot of these violent clashes. I'd like to see more where people are not, they're just not paying taxes, or they're not paying taxes and recommending to other people not to pay, or they start doing things like Bill in New Hampshire and just be a big Abba Fongul to these state agents, say, I'm not going to comply. You can make all your threats, and so that's I think the escalating police state and police violence and the escalating violence in general has to do with more and more people realizing what's going on and not complying. It's a natural outgrowth of a system that's based on psychopathy. When you have a psychopathic system, that's what's going to keep happening. So on a smaller scale, you can look at how these cops are junkies. If we're talking about just cops, these cops get an adrenaline rush out of beating people. They get a rush out of breaking into somebody's home at 3 o'clock in the morning with their guns, and it's more DHS giving them these toys that they have to try out. And so they're going to need a bigger and bigger hit. It's like any other junkie. Just one line of blow isn't going to do it anymore for these guys. They need 5 or 6.
Interesting analogy.
Well, there's absolute scientific proof that these guys are getting adrenaline hits. They're adrenaline junkies.
No question.
And then you've also got the dopamine. You've got the thrill of the hunt. It is serious. I mean, cops will tell you. I've had one on the show, and I've spoken to other ones. They are addicted. These guys are dopamine and adrenaline addicts. They are drug addicts. Whether they ever smoke a joint, well, they're better off smoking a joint. If cops were more hopped up on, or potted up on weed, I think is the phrase, we wouldn't have so much police brutality.
I agree with that.
I got a couple more questions coming in from Tyranny News Network. His first question is for Mark. How do people react to you being a voluntarist? I can never say that.
Voluntarist?
Yeah, that word.
Actually, that is... there's usually, because on the shirt, I've got the Anarchy A. I get more of a reaction from that. But for voluntarist, it's more of what the hell does that mean? And it's great. And the word still hasn't been corrupted, so now it leads to a conversation. I said, well, I'm a voluntarist just like you. I said, what do you mean? I said, well, do you believe that all human interactions should be voluntary? I said, well, yes, of course. Well, congratulations, that's all a voluntarist is. It's just most but a voluntarist who accepts the label just is more consistent in his behavior and in his thought. Whereas the average voluntarist, unfortunately, doesn't see. They still accept the concept of a government and states, and that some people, it's okay. And it's moral for them to initiate force and have force involuntary relationships and interactions because they call themselves government. So I think the other one was, do you go to court? And if so, do you or have you hired a lawyer? I go to court. I used to go to court an awful lot. Not so much anymore. The last time I went to court was for somebody else, and I almost got shot. And I have never hired an attorney. I never will hire an attorney, and I recommend on my show every time it comes up to never hire an attorney. I think there are very limited circumstances because you're in prison or you're in jail where only a lawyer can help you. It doesn't mean he has to represent you, but he's the only one that's going to be, a member of the bar cult is going to be the only one to be able to get paperwork in and out. So maybe in that situation it's okay. Otherwise, don't ever hire a lawyer. Don't post bail. If someone's going to post bail, let them do it for you. Everything you're doing is under threat, duress, and coercion. And sorry to repeat myself, but it's necessary. Never hire a lawyer. You will regret it.
Okay. Ryan says that Joey is ready, so let's give Joey another try. Joey, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. You go ahead for your question with Mark.
Well, I'd just like to say that I 100% agree with Mark on never hiring a lawyer because he recently helped my wife and I out.
Oh.
We actually got a better deal than the only lawyer that showed up for traffic court that day. So, yeah, I don't really have any questions specifically for Mark. Is there anything that you wanted to bring up about what we recently went through?
Well, yeah, Joey, and Joey, I appreciate you calling that. It was a fun time on the show when you and your wife had called and learned a new swear word, which was which was cool. But yeah, if you just if it's okay with the guys, if you want to just give a couple of details on what happened when you went in and got a better deal than the guys that had the attorneys.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, when we went into court, there was a lawyer that had showed up before us, and he went in and immediately talked to the police officers before they actually started the court proceedings and worked out some sort of deal for his client. And then about 20 minutes later, we get called in, and they just, started talking to us about the motion we had filed, which we had gotten from Mark from his website there, and the discovery request, and offered us the same deal the lawyer had worked out with them, which was lowering a $400 fine down to a 2-point violation for $86. And my wife was ready to take it almost, and I said, well, how about no point violation? I mean, that would work out a lot better for insurance purposes and everything else. And he said, yeah, we could do that, but we'd have to file it under the city ordinance for $100. And so, we did a little bit more discussion, and we settled on that. So we ended up, getting a $400 fine dropped down to $100, no point violation on the license or anything like that, which was better than what the lawyer had worked out for his client. And basically, when we went before the judge, it was okay. Yep, how do you plead? We plead no contest. They recommended the judge, give a $100 fine. That's what it was, $100. We were out of there.
Yeah, and to point out too, even if you had just gotten the same deal that the lawyer was getting everybody else on your own, you would have saved the lawyer fee, which had to be at least $500.
Oh yeah, we had actually talked to a lawyer, and the minimum they were charging anybody was $1,500.
Wow.
So yeah, $1,500 just to take the case, to go before the court and all that stuff. So. Well more than $500.
Yeah, that's extraordinary. And the last thing I would ask, I know people may be looking at it saying, "Wow, that's just kind of a minor thing there, big deal. It was traffic." But do you believe that this experience has not hardened you, but has helped prep you guys so that if you were going to go, and charge with something a lot more serious, that you would be a lot more comfortable and more confident and better prepared to defend yourselves there and still not have to get an attorney?
Oh, of course, definitely, because we were the only ones in that courtroom that actually got to work out some type of deal, or were even called in to work out some type of deal that didn't have a lawyer. So everybody else, there's about 20 other people there, they didn't have that opportunity. So based on what we learned, the motions we filed, and things like that, I mean, helped us out tremendously, and we would do the exact same thing for any other type of, threat that was levied against us.
So thank you. I appreciate that, and that's what I think is one of the benefits, especially when we have the what we were mentioning earlier, guys, about the parking ticket study. So even though it's a minor thing, you are engaging professional litigators, and you're making basically the same challenge as you would if you were charged with possession or something more serious. or let's say tax evasion or something like that. So it's all the same challenges because it's the same presumptions, the same arguments, and just like with traffic, as opposed to a more serious offense, they're just as unsupported in the traffic court as they are in the county court or the federal court.
That's awesome. Thanks for your story there, Joey. We've got. I'm gonna move on if it's okay. We got
no problem.
Thanks, Joey.
Yep.
We got another question that was asking if Mark is familiar with, I believe it's pronounced Byron Jug Fund money, and the incentive it gives to task force to arrest low-level drug users.
Well, I'm familiar with. What was the word you used about the fund?
It's spelled BYRNEJAG. Fund money. I've never heard of it myself.
I've not heard of that. I do know that the feds do give perverse incentives. And also DHS does the same thing to be going after the low-level guys, and on top of the fact that they get to keep most of the the money that they steal, the money and the drugs that they steal. So, but I'm not familiar with that particular phrase.
There was another question. This is for the whole table. It was wondering if what everybody thought about what Eric Holder said, which was, but we also must concern ourselves with a different type of threat. We face an escalating danger from self-radicalized individuals within our own borders. He thinks that it seems to him that Holder is calling out independent researchers and YouTubers. What is the roundtable's thought on that? Mark, you can start if you want.
Oh, okay. I would imagine that it's probably because people like us are having some kind of impact and reaching more people. And I know for the way that I do things, it's so simple. And I did a quick video about how to gut government's presumption of legitimacy, and you could do it by just asking a few questions. It's always been an issue with these people regarding those of us who do not believe in organized government, that as anarchists, being that, at least for myself, being an anarchist just means you reject the concept of a ruler. And those of us who reject the concept of a ruler are always going to be seen as a threat by these people. And it's funny you raised that, because I'm going to do a short screen video. I have the Declaration of Intent for Naturalization from my great-grandmother, a little Irish woman from Canada, or Newfoundland at the time. And one of the two things that you had to swear to was, one, you weren't a polygamist, which I still don't, I don't know. I don't get it. But the other one was, you had to swear that you were not a disbeliever in organized government. And I know that the Tyranny News Network, he was saying it was a typo. He meant voluntary terrorist. I always start the show when I discuss that, how JT and I, my co-host, a very good friend of mine, how we're partners in domestic terrorism. In that, like what Holder's saying, we not only reject the concept of a ruler in governments and whatnot, we have done what I think is a very good job of presenting evidence, just completely annihilating their perception of legitimacy. And they see people like us as a threat because we're exposing them for what they are. And for myself, I give people the tools to do it on their own, and people have done that. And that one simple question really guts the entire presumption of legitimacy that these people have. And I've asked it before, Brian, and I've got call to shames on this. And the question is, if I did business the same way you guys did and forced people to give me money, would you consider me a criminal? and that doesn't require any kind of conspiracy theory. It doesn't require any kind of going through the books and trying to understand what the code says. That is confronting these bureaucrats directly to their face and gutting their presumption or their false perception of legitimacy. And I believe it's things like that scare them the most, because there's really no defense against it. It's just education. It's something that anybody can do, and it's so simple. It doesn't involve any kind of plots. It just involves journalism. It involves journalism and activism, and just asking and confronting these killers, thieves, and liars, with simple questions. If you think your laws apply, because that's the only thing that separates you from the thief in the street, then show me the evidence. And you can see from any number of my call of shames that they can.
Mark, I'm actually in Newfoundland right now.
Where?
I'm in St. John's.
St. John's, gee.
Yeah, I'm there on a vacation, actually. I'm from here.
You're from St. John's? Oh, my gosh. In fact, when I post that document, you'll see that my great-grandmother, the port she came out of was St. John's.
Get out of here. And basically, this was one of the birthplaces of what you call capitalist cronyism. I don't mean, I'm not trying to bash capitalism, that's a whole other ball game, but the cronyism was one of the first places where it really took foothold was here, because you had all these people on these outport communities in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean fishing, and you had all these British merchants that had massive houses. You can still see them in downtown core of St. John's. And they would loan out all this equipment that wouldn't last long enough for them to be able to pay it back. So they were in this constant state of you had to fish or you had no money at all and you were completely owing to these merchants. So it was just this horrible cyclical cycle. And there was nothing but government legislation to help protect these very rich merchants. And it's basically just a state of hocus pocus, like you were saying. That's really what most of these laws are. Right down to like the legal entity that we defend ourselves with in court. It really is. It's a concocted corporation of ourselves, really.
Well, it's all garbage, and I think what you're getting at too is more, I guess, crony capitalism, corporatism. Because Newfoundland was, and I just found this out because doing all this family history, Newfoundland was very instrumental in the European economy for 300 years. I mean, it was one of the driving forces, and it's quite. I wish if we had time to get into that, because capitalism has its own problems. Because as anarchists, you have to look at the structure, the hierarchy that you have with capitalism, and I'm all for free trade, but something like what you had so many hundreds of years ago was that if you look economics, capitalism drove the slave trade, obviously with the help of their tool, the governments. But capitalism drove the slave trade, and it was because the slave trade, of course, was driven by the sugar industry and tobacco, which were the two main players there. But you also cross, Newfoundland. Well, let me ask you. I hate to get off topic, but you got to get some pictures. And is St. Vincent very far from St. John's?
St. Vincent's. I have to be, I'll have to look into it while you guys might be covering another topic or whatnot, because I'm what you call a useless townie. I don't know anything outside of the city. It's the largest city in the place. So once you get outside what's called the overpass, right, I don't really know too much. I think St. Vincent's is close to somewhere called St. Mary's, a couple hours away, just off the main peninsula here.
Okay, but you are you familiar with the term the Irish Loop?
Yes. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
That's where you are. You're in the Avalon Peninsula, and that part of the Avalon Peninsula is the Irish Loop.
Yeah, and St. Mary's is the northern part of it. And my grandfather is from the Irish Loop. It's a place called Argentia, Placentia. It was actually the capital of New France. It was called Plaisance. And there was a couple wars fought around that area. And basically, that whole area, it even had its own language. And you're right when you said Irish. They actually spoke an Irish language. My grandfather didn't, but many people did. But yeah, exactly. The Irish Loop. I'm impressed, man. I'm impressed.
Well, I am a direct descendant of the Moriartys. I actually have a document from a directory from the Irish Loop from 1898, and of course my great-great-grandfather Joseph Moriarty is listed under the Holyrood section. You're probably familiar with Holyrood then.
Yeah.
Right? And so you go down, and there's Joseph Moriarty, fisherman. Duh.
Nice. I'll take a look up, man. That's pretty cool. Cool, man. What did you want me to get the pictures of?
Just of anything. And we'll have to keep in contact. You'll have to contact me when we're not interrupting Brian's show.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
This is not my show. This is the round table. 49 is our normal host up north of the 49th, and unfortunately this week she's a little sick and she's also out of town, so I told her I would just take care of everything and pull in the guests and that kind of good stuff. So with that segue, we have another question from 49 herself, asking what Mark's thoughts are that we are currently being controlled by the IRS from another country like Puerto Rico.
I've never seen any actual proof of that. I've investigated it myself, and as far as I'm concerned, they're just people. It doesn't matter what physical location they're in. It could all be from, hell, it could all be from Brussels for all we know, or Switzerland. We just don't know for sure. The geographic location is not as important to me as the presumption that their laws apply to me just because I'm physically here. But I am familiar with that. I'm very familiar with that. And again, like I said, we did investigate that. We didn't find any actual proof of that. Not that in the scheme of things it would really matter.
Awesome. We got Corey on the line. Has a question for you. You there, Corey?
Hello.
Go ahead, Corey.
Mark, I'm a big fan of you. First heard you on Red Ice and Cop Block. And I've always been rebel about a cause, and so I've already seen through the bullcrap of government, but even they can't prove it themselves. That's always fascinating to me. So, I mean, in your crusade, I don't understand. The thing I don't understand about your crusade is for average person. Say if you're in court for a petty crime or a traffic violation, what can you as an average person do?
On traffic?
I'm sorry?
What can you do to defend against a traffic ticket?
Yeah, petty charges.
Well, look at what they're charging you with. You've got a police officer, and we know the police officer is approaching you to begin with because he believes that if you're physically, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Mississippi, North Mississippi, south of.
They believe that
Memphis,
because you're physically in Mississippi, then the laws of Mississippi apply to you and that he has jurisdiction. And that is really running every presumption or argument that he's going to level at you. And I attack it from, I defend against it that way. I don't, I always do, it's the same thing. I would rather strike at the root, or the root, depending on where you're from, and I'd rather go at the operating presumption that everything else is stacked on top of. So I have a motion available, and it's been crossed over for almost all the 50 so-called states, and we just point out that the police officer or the prosecutor has not presented any facts to show that the Constitution laws apply just because you're physically in Mississippi. And that's the way we do it. And of course, our discovery request, we're going to ask for witnesses and evidence to prove that, and they're legally obligated to give you that. I mean, obviously, without witnesses and evidence, that the Constitution laws apply, they can't prove jurisdiction. Two, it's an element of the crime. So they're charging you with violating the Mississippi Code, so they have to have proof that it actually applies. Now, it's got to be by either preponderance of the evidence, or if it's criminal, by beyond a reasonable doubt. And you can't do that, or you may not do that. Oh, no, you can't do that with just an allegation from the police officer. Hey, he violated the code. That's an allegation. That's not proof. And so that's why we do it in traffic court. Joey had a number of, who was just a previous caller, had a number of encounters. So I would suggest, if you're interested in how to do that with more information and actual documents to prove how we've done this successfully in court, just go to my website, markstevens.net, and go through. It's called Success Stories, and so we have actual, the dismissal documents. And contrary, Brian, what some critics will say, and that have trolled my forum, we do have documents where the motion to dismiss or to demur was granted. So it's not that it's been denied 100% of the time. That's not true.
Does that answer your question, Corey?
I'm sorry, you broke up there.
I said, did that help answer your question?
Yes, it did. And what do you think about the movement of people like Stanis Bonacci and like Jordan Maxwell? I think Jordan Maxwell is a little little nutty for my taste, but he has this whole admiralty law theory, and the stands for Nazi has this theory where money is just a piece of paper type theory, and they believe that admiralty law applies or something, and it's a fraud or something. And I don't understand law anyway, but
Don't worry. Well, this is why I keep things very basic, and I've been able to, and I've got call to shames where I'm speaking to, or the Same Old Lie World Tour, where I'm speaking to politicians, bureaucrats in U.S., Canada, Australia, and England, and I keep it very broad. I just want, because again, the operating presumption or argument is if you're physically in Canada, then the laws apply to you. They'll all agree to that. So I actually have a law professor in British Columbia, and they agree with that. That's the way they operate. So whether they're calling it admiralty or maritime or the law of Alfred, it doesn't matter because there's no evidence, regardless of how they're calling it, whether it's admiralty or not, there's no actual evidence that applies in the first place. So, to me, I don't see any reason, and I don't see any merit in assuming that they're operating under admiralty, because it's not relevant. I'd rather strike at the root and go right at the operating foundation, because if I can gut the operating opinion, what forms the foundation for everything they do, then nothing else matters. So I got nothing against those guys. I don't even know them. I just don't. I don't see the merit there, and also I don't accept the idea that there's ever been a legitimate government. I just see people who are forcing others to pay them, and I call those criminals. I don't call them governments.
right, if we lived under a monarchy, you would have the Monarchy News Network where we have the king who gives speeches and stuff. I guess I just feel that it's no different than that. It's just different. It's just they just wear business suits now.
Yeah, they wear suits. But it's all the same. It's all the same basis where you've got one group of people forcing others to pay them. I know some may say that I'm oversimplifying that, but that's an observable fact. It is not up for reasonable dispute that they are men and women forcing others to pay them money and give them property. And if we start from there, all the rest makes sense, and that's why it doesn't matter if you call it admiralty, the law of Alfred, or or whatever, or the Roman civil law. Like some guys like to go into Ballantyne's or Black's Law Dictionary or Bouvier's and get this this 3 lines like, that's what they're doing. That's the key. I'm like, they're forcing you to pay them. It's just that simple. That's why we asked them, right? And would you consider me a criminal if I force people to give me money? Yes. Okay. There you go.
I think one of the arguments, at least in
if in like certain neighborhoods, like say Jersey or something, the mafia rules. If you don't pay protection money, you get thrown out of the neighborhood or killed. So it's that's the way really government is. It's just they're more formal, more organized.
Well, yeah, they don't resort to executions as quickly, but it's getting there when you're dealing with the cops. The executions, unfortunately, do happen, but not nearly to the the degree that the mafia. But I've said for a long time that the difference between gangs called government and gangs called the mafia is that those called government have better PR. And they've been able, and through that PR, they've been able to convince people that they, unlike the mafia, have a right to control you. And people still accept that. It's what Larkin Rose calls the most dangerous superstition, and he's absolutely right. It's the belief that you have like this IRS agent I spoke to today. He believes, like a lot of people believe, that he has a right to do what he's doing. He doesn't need evidence. He has a right to do this. And if I resist, I'm the criminal. That's twisted. That's sick. That's a mind that is not working right at all.
Well, slave master has the right to own you, I guess.
It's the same mindset. It's exactly the same mindset. They have a right to own. They have a right to own you as property and treat you as property, and that's exactly what they do.
We're coming up to the top. I hate to stop you, Mark. We're coming up to the top of the hour here. We're supposed to be having Anthony Antonello, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. He's supposed to be coming on here in the next couple of minutes to talk about the I believe the white flags on the Brooklyn Bridge, and I'm not exactly sure what that was supposed to be about. And it's pronounced Antonello. Antonello. I'm horrible. I'm sorry, guys.
Is this some kind of deep-seated hatred for guineas like myself? There is that
absolutely not. I'm just horrible at reading names. I'm very sorry.
Antonello.
Yes. And don't forget Dago and WAP too as well.
Hey, that's Mr. WAP to you.
That's right, without papers, brother.
So welcome aboard, Anthony.
Thank you.
Say hello to Mark Stevens.
Thank you for having me on the show, guys. How's everything going?
Welcome.
It's going okay. I apologize for not knowing a whole lot about you. That is my fault. If you want to give everybody a quick update on who you are, what you're into, what we're doing, then we'll go from there, I guess.
Okay. You want me to introduce myself? All right.
Sure, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No problem. My name's Anthony Antonello. I'm a journalist, radio host, activist above all. I've been doing this for pushing a decade. I was the producer for Adam versus the Man for a couple months. With the original We Are Change back in the days of 9/11 street action, and done lots of things since then. I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. I don't know if that's on my end or yours.
I'm gonna have to guess it's on your end. So I'm not hearing any feedback at the current moment.
Okay. We'll figure it out. I'll be all right. But yeah. So that's pretty much it. I started out as just a straight activist, realizing that the cornerstone of this problem is information, that people are starving for information and they can't get it, and that's because of the corporate-owned media. And I decided to take it on myself, and I joined forces with a lot of other people that were starting to really step it up, and the rest is history.
Awesome.
Great.
Red Pill, you have any questions for Anthony?
Yeah, I got plenty, but first I just want to say it's cool to talk to you, brother. I enjoy your work. I've been following you for a long time, so
Thank you.
You do great work, and I think we need more Anthony Antonellos in the world. People like you get out there, man. So that's always very admirable. So definitely have my respect.
And yeah, I appreciate you saying that, and because that really is what it is about, and people have to realize that sitting around watching videos, yeah, you have to get informed, but there becomes a point where you have to do something about it. You have to pick up like my very first confrontation. Well, if you want to call it confrontation, but one of the first things I did, activism-wise, is I went to an event where Bill Clinton was going to be speaking, and I called him out in front of about 5,000 brain-dead zombies. And this was back in the day when people were scared that, now it's more socially acceptable. I couldn't even get a cameraman. I almost got beat up by a bunch of union thugs. And
I saw that.
Right, if you've seen the video, you'd see I get surrounded by, I think it was SCIU or UFCW, one of them. And they surrounded me, and Bill Clinton stopped his speech and addressed me. And it's to show you how brain dead the audience was, I was just saying things like end the Fed and bipartisan things. And he stopped his speech and he said, "I'll make you a deal." You know, he's like, "You let me speak. Anybody who wants to stay and hear you speak afterwards could stay and hear you speak." And of course, you know, the crowd starts clapping. And I said, "I will debate you right now," you know. And you know,
Yeah.
I got kicked in the leg, and you see, I know the rules of engagement and something like that. As long as I stay focused on the speaker, I'm okay. But if I started engaging the people that surrounded me or the guy that kicked me, they would have arrested me, hog-tied me, and carried me out of there, you know. But point being is you know, there gets a point where you have to realize that just knowing, just watching videos isn't enough. You have to start doing something, even if it's something as small as, hey, this guy's organizing a call-in bomb to a local radio station. You know, pick up a phone, it's free. You know, do something. And you know, that's the trick that people don't realize is it's all on you. You know, you don't need the best equipment in the world. You don't need thousands and thousands of dollars in video equipment and all kinds of stuff and mobile hotspots and all that. Like, you could make pretty much anything happen if you put your mind to it. You know, I just wasn't the guy that was gonna sit around waiting for the perfect meeting like so many people were. Like, you know, they go to these meetings and they talk about, we'll do this and we'll do that. Like, listen, at this point, I'm starting to feel, you know, about 8 years in, pretty much all aboard that's getting aboard. You know, I'm still gonna keep doing what I'm doing, but I think that they have marginalized the people that are awake to what's going on in this world, and we'll keep doing what we're doing, but you look at the numbers of what we do in the independent media, and then you compare them to local mainstream media. Like, our network, you know, the network I'm with, and my shows, like, we bury the local mainstream media here, and I mean, that's saying a lot, you know. So
No,
yeah,
that's
we're go ahead.
that's quite an accomplishment, actually. You know. So.
And you know, I never in a million years did I think that I would be doing something like this, but I just got hip to some information and realized that it was too important to ignore. I tried bringing it to some journalists, and I realized that they weren't interested. They wouldn't talk about it. They ignored me. I tried being clever about it. I sent them certified letters where they had the sign for it, so they didn't have plausible deniability. And I just started thinking outside the box and doing things that others wouldn't do. And you know, I've accomplished so much in my area where I just had a meeting, a literal over an hour meeting, a sit-down meeting with the head of the biggest radio station in northeastern Pennsylvania because of a stunt I pulled on the 4th of July exposing one of their journalists about the dirty tactics that he's using. So, you know, they know they're not going to stop me one way. No, you know, no matter how many times they try to tell me I'm banned or I can't call the shows or the stations, or I mean, every time they come at me, I come at them 10 times harder, and it just you know, I'm just showing them that people want the truth. People want to you know what's going on, and they're tired of their propaganda, their fluff, their puff pieces, their garbage stories. And you know, they realize that shit's real, man. Things are happening, and it's not good, and we need people to step up to the plate and start doing some real serious stuff. So that's where I'm coming from.
Well, we got another question, and this is going to be for both you, Anthony and Mark. And that question is, what are your opinions on Aaron Russo's expose on the income tax, the IRS, the Federal Reserve, etc.? Anthony, we can start with you.
You want to start with me? All right. I haven't found a reason to question what he, and if somebody has information to the contrary, I'm more than happy and would be more than willing to look at it. But I have not found anything to the contrary as to why to not believe what he did. You know, freedom to fascism. And as far as the income tax, the Federal Reserve, I mean, it all adds up. If you look at this this country, other than the protection racket scam that they have going, I mean, it's a debt-based slave system, and mathematically, it's impossible to get out of debt or get out of this system that they have built. I mean, that's why they talk about Americans as consumers, or if you work at a place, you're a human resource. You're never a person, or so it's very obvious what they think of you, and they're just gonna take everything. You're slaves. You're a slave to this system, if you allow that to be mentally, But yeah, I mean, that's where I'm coming from with that. I mean, if I missed something recently, then let me know. But yeah, that's where I'm at as of right now.
Yeah, and I'm glad to talk with you there, Anthony. I agree with you 100% that I like with my radio show. I don't do philosophy. I've got nothing against it. I engage and I read. I don't want to just get on the radio or do shows like this and just talk about what the problem is. We know what the problem is. It's just you've got to start doing something. It's the activism, and that's
Right.
if you're not engaging them or at least doing something to educate people, like you were just saying. Like with some of my videos, like confronting city council members, so that the people can hear for themselves what kind of criminals they are. And I agree with you. You mentioned something about the media not caring. I have on video, and I shot this around here in Phoenix, right there confronting the city council last year, and he says, "You want evidence of your jurisdiction? Here it goes. We have jurisdiction because we said so." And you would think that a politician saying something like that would be front page news. Nobody, they didn't care. I even posted a call of shame from somebody at the local news. They don't care. But as far as Aaron Russo's movie, I agree with him on the mechanics of the tax and the IRS and the Federal Reserve, and I don't agree from the standpoint. I think it's been very easy for them to prove show me the law, because it's Section 1, Section 61. And they've been able to prevail on that. And my standpoint has always been, I've been much more effective, I believe, in challenging the application. Show me the evidence that your laws actually apply in the first place. And just today, another IRS agent, to quote him, when I asked him, simple question, can you confirm you have evidence proving the Constitution and Code apply to my client? He said, I'm not going to get into this. I said, do you have any witnesses to prove this? He says, I don't know. So from that standpoint, from a tactical standpoint, I don't believe it's nearly as effective for them to challenge the interpretation of the law as opposed to challenging them on the evidence that applies in the first place. And I think that his movie would have been far more effective, and the scope of its influence would have been far greater had he been able to get politicians like I've been able to do, but he's getting the big guys, not me.
Right.
If he was able to get the big politicians to get, like with the police chief I had here in Scottsdale, Arizona, to not be able to prove that their laws apply. I mean, imagine his movie, where these politicians can't prove the law applies at all, regardless of what it says. That would have had a much, I believe, this is my own opinion, I think would have had a far greater impact than it did. But I think he had a tremendous amount of good, because he exposed people to things and in such a way that they were able to understand it. And I think it's led a lot of people to question the I shouldn't say legality, but question the legitimacy of the system itself, the entire system, and seeing it as just a neo-feudalism, which is exactly what it is.
Yeah,
Hey, Mark.
no, I completely agree. And when I'm trying to find out the exact year, if somebody knows it right off the top of their head. Does anybody know right off the top of their head the year Freedom to Fascism was produced and made, or released at least?
It was 2001.
Well, okay, 2001. So right, let's see. Could it have been? Was it really 2001?
I'm almost positive. Give me a moment and I'll tell you.
Okay. And the point. Okay, so no, and it's not 2006.
No, it's no, it's not 2000. That was
Yeah,
a
I know
re-release.
that somebody
We're
just.
looking at the same thing, I'm sure.
Yeah. No. Initial release. Hang on.
Aaron had long passed away since then.
Yeah, no, I know that somebody sending me something, but they must be looking at the wrong thing.
Wikipedia is wrong,
Okay.
but I think they were right. It was 2001 or 2002.
Okay. So even if it was back, and the point I'm making is he was, and I agree with everything you just said, and where I'm coming from is he was a trailblazer, okay, way ahead of his time, who was putting information out that was completely taboo. And I mean, I'm not going to dare to try to make a comparison to try to equate it or conflate it to the conversation we're having now. But of course we could look back and say how things can be better or things could have been better. And as much as I agree with you, look at, I mean, man, I can't even imagine being back then. Okay, people didn't have cameras like they have now. Everybody has a camera on them. Politicians getting confronted constantly. I mean, just the topic of the Federal Reserve wasn't even being talked about back then. So he was way ahead of the curve when he was talking about what he's talking about. So if somebody knew, like you just said, you said you were working on something similar, right, Mark? Or you just haven't gotten so many politicians? Is that what it was?
Well, I haven't gotten the higher level politicians. The highest level politician that I've gotten is, let's say, someone in an attorney general's office. But I, unfortunately, with the little bit of media coverage that I've had, and that my website has, what I've done so far, since it's easily available on the website, is enough to keep higher level politicians from speaking to me.
Yeah, no, and you see that is exactly, that was a perfect segue into where I was coming from. Is back then he had going for him the element of surprise. Okay, now I mean there has been such a can of worms that have been open on so many topics. I went to CPAC last year. And it's almost like these politicians, whether congressmen, senators, no matter who it is, it's almost like if they don't know exactly who you are, if it's not a predetermined sit down or a predetermined interview, they will not answer your question, even if they agree with you. I think they will completely ignore you. And in this one video, I totally proved this, where Senator Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania was walking down a hallway. Now he was speaking with a certain reporter. She must have been a corporate-owned reporter because he was speaking with her. The second I went to talk to him and I mentioned about the RNC being rigged and John Boehner getting caught reading from a teleprompter and threw some serious questions at him, he clammed up, wouldn't say anything to me, and then I said, can I get any response from you? I said, here we are in Maryland. I said, I'm from your area. I said, could I get any response from you? And he said something about the weather. It's a nice day, partly cloudy, but a chance of sun coming out. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. James Inhofe, Senator James Inhofe, twice I confronted him. I followed him the length of the hotel. It was about a 4-minute walk twice. I have both videos up. And I was asked the questions. I don't even think I really got to ask him anything. I just said, Senator, can I ask you a question? And their tactic was, because the previous years we got so much material by confronting Rumsfeld. I got Rumsfeld the one year, and we got a lot of these big dogs. So it seems like they changed their tactic to, if they don't know it's a completely controlled environment, they're not going to say anything. Like period. So we've lost the element of surprise, and when people want to say, "Oh, you don't want to lower yourself to ambush journalism or gotcha questions." Well, listen, at this point, number one, I don't have a problem with ambush journalism whatsoever. I mean, people will look at that term however they want, but when people aren't going to talk to you and they will not respond to your phone calls, they will not set up meetings with you, they will not talk to you under any circumstance, you are left with nothing. You have nothing left but to go outside their office, wait for them to leave, put a camera in front of their face, and ask them a friggin' question. And if somebody wants to, railroad you for that, listen, that's what journalism started out as. That's what reporting used to be, but they don't do it anymore. All reporting is now, journalism is now, is public relations between the Pentagon and, and the American people and the rest of the world. That's all they're there for, is to, mold things, shift things, and shape things to give you. I mean, they even admitted in the 2014 NDAA that they could take taxpayer money and use it on literal propaganda. It makes it legal. So, I mean, for the fact that what we're doing, if anybody tries to say, "Oh, that's not the right way to do it, you're not doing it the right way," well, number one, there is no right way. And when people, like when I confronted Mitt Romney on the rope line and I forced him into answering me, he said, "I don't take important questions on the rope line, only at a press conference," right? You don't have press conferences. That's number one. And number two, you have never answered that question. So, and the reporters that do get the 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes to sit down with them, they know are not going to answer those questions because they have preconditions. And you could find a whole list of YouTube videos of reporters that decided to sit down with actual journalists, and they might have been brought into these circumstances under certain conditions. And when the journalists started asking real questions, like Nancy Pelosi, I just watched one, she got upset and she said, "Oh, we weren't supposed to be talking about this," and she ended up leaving the interview because the journalist was actually doing his job. And these journalists end up getting fired. So it shows you what has happened to the media in America. You have Bill Hemmer on record saying that there's two different versions of Fox, one for Americans and one for the rest of the world. Okay, so I mean, what does that tell you? So yeah, there's a lot to it, and for the fact that people think that they're gonna just make certain statements and say, "Oh, they're doing it the wrong way, and we're gonna do it this way, and we have all the right answers." Well, no. Some of us have been around for a very long time and have tried many aspects. We've tried the polite way. We still try the polite way, and when they ignore us or keep walking, well, that's when we just keep, upping the gradient. We just, keep escalating the situation until they say, "Oh, what are we going to have to call security?" Well, yeah, call security, and then we'll explain to them why you refuse to answer those questions. So, yeah, this is what it has come down to.
Real journalism, there's not very much of it. And I think one of the ways that, and I've gone through a lot of the same thing that you're talking about, where, for example, I don't remember her name. I reported on my show. She is one of the head people in D.C. for the media people, the media outlet, whatever they're called, the public information officers at the IRS. They won't speak to me in any shape or form. They will not even communicate or take a phone call from me anymore, let alone try to set something up. And so, but when I'm able to do it, that's why I start so basic, because my goal as a journalist is to completely gut the false presumption of legitimacy that governments, these gangs called governments, enjoy. And so I'm usually able to get my foot in the door by asking them the same basic question. Look, if I'm physically in the U.S., do the Constitution and law and U.S. code apply to me? And so I'll get some agreement. And I've been using that to get my foot in the door. That, look, I just want to talk about the application of U.S. law, or and what's unfortunate, and I'm getting feedback from these politicians that they are going to my website, and because of the nature, when they see that these politicians or I have a federal magistrate here in Phoenix who basically admitted that the application of the law was arbitrary, which was fantastic. So I think when they see something like the police chief in Scottsdale completely unable to provide any evidence the laws apply, they know that they can't. That is too difficult a question. They can only suffer political embarrassment by coming on and talking to me, so they just shut it down. There is an election going on here right now that they're getting ready for. You can't swing a cat without hitting one of their stupid signs. As much of a media whore as they each seem to be, nobody will come on and do an interview for 4 or 5 minutes with me. They will not discuss the application, but I can't give them all the questions, even though there's only 2. And if I give them everything, then I'll never get a call back.
Yeah, no. That's exactly what it is, and I deal with this with local media in my area, and they know exactly what I stand for, and I go through this cycle of being banned from certain station or certain shows, then the entire station, and then some. But every time they do something like that, I come at them even harder, and then they don't know how to handle me because I'm not somebody from the right. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm just reporting on stories that most of them refuse to talk about. That I come at it from an angle that they just don't understand. And I've gotten a lot of them to admit on the air that, yes, they are censored, that, yes, they will lose their job if they talk about certain things. Israel, big thing, I have people on record saying that is the biggest thing that will get you fired from a mainstream outlet is if you talk bad about Israel, you're, gone. But, I mean, so many different things I've exposed, and that's why I said it's gotten to the point where if I go out and I talk to people and say I go do a poll, I go to an event and I start interviewing people. Do you trust the government? No. Do you trust the media? No. Okay, so I get that, but then when I try to get a little bit deeper into it, they still go to these same organizations, the government and the media, in order for their information, and they don't realize the hypocrisy in that. And when I say, have you ever tried doing something different, try the independent media or this or that, and that's why this truly is an information war, because we are under full-blown assault right now by the corporate-owned media trying to peg us all. They love the word conspiracy theorist, these conspiracy theorists. And, they have a list. They literally have a list. I don't have it in front of me, but they have a list of things they run down. When somebody says certain things that they're not prepared for, there are certain websites that they're constantly sent to. They go to Snopes.com, which is just a couple in their house, which is a total shill website that that supposedly is the truth for everything. They're the ones debunking the debunkers. What's the other one? Factcheck.org, founded by the Annenberg Foundation. It's so easy to rip apart these people, but the problem is all they have to do is press a button and you're gone. So that's why I came up with this idea a long time ago, is doing Colin bombs, and I think I had to date, and if somebody could prove me wrong, I'd love to see it. The biggest, most effective Colin bomb ever. I organized around 300 people from North America, from Texas to I'm in PA, from Texas to California, a whole bunch of people in Canada, and we called one radio station, and we literally hijacked this radio station for 4 hours, because the show was 4 hours, and every call he went to, his head was spinning. He didn't know what was what, and we were all on the same page. I created, a Facebook page where we could all contact, where they couldn't see what we were doing, and it was great. It was so effective. And the problem is that's a lot of man hours and a lot of work. And that was a time, that was what, about 5-6 years ago. That's when a lot more people were a lot more enthusiastic about a lot of things, and it's hard. And that's what this divide and conquer strategy does, is it wears people down. Like, it costs money to do things. We all have families or houses or bills, and we have to do all this stuff. So I mean, being an activist or doing what we do, unless you somehow find somebody who has a ton of money and says, here, I'm going to pay all your bills, just keep doing what you're doing. I mean, it's very difficult to compete with these people because they have unlimited resources. They, once they go home, they get to relax for the rest of the night, and somebody else picks up right where they left off and starts drilling the propaganda just as hard, if not harder. So it's very difficult to compete with them. But on that level, but the things we do have going for us is that we have technology. I could do with my cell phone what it takes them, thousands of dollars to send a satellite truck out to go cover an event. I don't have to worry about the FCC. I have the truth on my side. I have what are people more willing to see? A real confrontation that they know hasn't been doctored, or news that's coming from these literal chronological, pathological liars. So, those are the things we do have on our side, and we just have to find a way to capitalize on them even more. We have to continue to network, which is one of the big things I'm doing now. I'm networking with other networks and trying to, build this independent media apparatus, whatever you want to call it, into something that is going to be a formidable opponent. Because what we need to do is, when people say the mainstream media, that's why I'm trying to step away from that, and I'm saying the corporate owned media, because mainstream is where most of the people are. And when I say I have better numbers than my local mainstream media, what I'm saying is that the facts there is that technically, then I'm mainstream. So what we need to do is we need to expose, which we have been doing for years, and I think we've accomplished that. Now we need to step into that mainstream spotlight. And with so many things coming out with technology, smart TVs, the internet being easier and easier to be on your television, where you could be, because a lot of people want to be comfortable at night, sit in their lazy boy and turn on TV. Well, if they're able to watch internet shows on their TV just as easy as they are as sitting in front of a laptop or a desktop, well, I think that's going to even the playing field a lot, and I think that's where the future is going, and we need to find a way to capitalize on that big time.
Now, Anthony, that was well said, and I actually, what you said was amazing about people with the hypocrisy. When you actually ask most people, they do not trust the government, and then when you ask, of course they turn their information, they turn to the government, and their media. So that's actually an amazing point. But a couple things I want to ask you guys. We got a question from Tyranny News Network, had a question regarding the income tax and Aaron Russo, so yeah, we want to get to that. Go ahead, Tyranny.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, first of all, thanks to you guys for coming and doing this. And I think this will be interesting to both Anthony and Mark. But first of all, I don't know if you're familiar with him. If you are, that's great. But there's a guy named Pete Hendrickson. He wrote a book called Cracking the Code. And for years, I was basically in that same conundrum. I think it sounds like maybe Mark is still in, or is in currently. And I know this is something that is a personal thing, what your opinion of the income tax is. But what Pete has explained is that it's not as crazy as it sounds, or as tyrannical as it seems, what the IRS has been doing. And I just typed into the chat here, his brother actually mentioned this in a little video montage, and this just kind of came out of nowhere, and I picked up on it because it really says a lot. Before World War II, 8% of Americans on average paid an income tax. And if you think about that, that's a really low number. And then when World War II began, paying an income tax was seen as a patriotic thing to do. So people did. And so at most at that time, I think at the height of the war, I think 39% of Americans paid an income tax. So it was a huge jump. Now, how can you get away with not paying an income tax, right? Well, because income apparently is for government employees only, as well as people who enjoy a government privilege. Now, this, in other words, when you get that, when you get your statement of earnings from your employers during the year, what Pete has said that you need to do is you just need to file a correction essentially to that, and you basically file 0. And then when you come back at the end of the year and you file your taxes, which you do need to apparently fill out the form, you simply put 0 because you've made no income. And it's as simple as that. And I've actually been through both his Cracking the Code and also Was Grandpa Really a Moron?, which is also another really good book. And it's extremely dull. I would not suggest, I would buy the book to support Pete, but not really because it's going to be really titillating or anything. But so have either of you heard of this guy, Pete Hendrickson, and have you heard of this concept before?
I had Pete on my show before he got convicted, and I know he's out now. And you know, we went through and showed some of the fallacies in the line of reasoning that he was putting out. I've done a lot of work with people to clean up the mess that was made, because yeah, he's got dozens, if not hundreds of return checks where the IRS has said, oh, okay, but what's not always reported. I mean, I get this, and people have called the show about it, that the IRS realizes what they that they made a mistake and they want the money back, and that's why you get these $5,000 fines, and they really ramp up the enforcement on those. I just I don't see the merit. One, I would never get into interpretation. I don't care what the code says unless the agent doing the attacking can actually prove that it applies. And in my experience, and I've spoken to hundreds of these agents, and again, another one just today, whose name was James Hill, as an acting supervisor. He's when it came to witnesses and evidence, proving the code applied in the first place, he says, I don't know. I've never seen where it's actually accurate that only, that a trade or business means only government employees, and it's just strange credulity to think that the government, that they passed the law saying, well, we're going to just pass a law that only government agents are taxed. It flies in the face of their other laws where they were able to tax state employees where they have agreements. I just don't see the merit in it whatsoever at all, and I've never seen it explained in a logical, coherent manner. And
let me throw in. I really do appreciate you saying this, because it is kind of one of those issues. Like I said, it's totally a personal thing, because there isn't one place we can go to get the answer. It's one of those mysteries essentially. And that's why Aaron Russo was attacking the whole situation, and why a guy like Pete Hendrickson had to be hooked up, and now it's actually his wife. They wanted his wife to swear that she did not support his theory, and she said, I can't do it. So they locked her up for a period of time, put her through one trial. It was a mistrial, and as I understand it, she was back in court recently. And it's one of these conspiracy-type charges relating to his supposed tax evasion, or rather his promoting of these ideas. I don't know what the exact charges are, but one thing I want to throw in as credit, as something to think about in response to your response, is if you look at the way it works, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and it never did. What the heck are we doing having to file our own taxes? Now, if we just fill in the numbers on a simple 1040 EZ form and send it in, why doesn't the government, which does everything else, why can't they just do it themselves? Why do they make the employer swear that you made this income, and then you, without challenging it, of course, there's, you're basically agreeing to it, because anytime someone says something and you don't refute that, you're basically agreeing to it, as I understand the way the law works, just in common law, in a sense.
No,
So doesn't that make sense in a way why they've done it that way?
Well, it makes perfect sense, because most of the way the so-called justice system works is to force you, it's to coerce you into being a witness against yourself. Whether it's taxes or whether it's a traffic ticket, whether it's possession, it doesn't matter. Their main course is to coerce you into being a witness against yourself. It's a standard operating procedure with them. So what they're able to do is, then, in my experience, they'll always say, why in the world would the employer have sent us a 1099 if he wasn't a taxpayer and required to pay? Because you threatened them with jail. That's why you We're not threatening them. Oh, you're so full of crap. Your eyes are leaking. Wait, are you kidding me? You put people in jail for 10 years for not filing those pay. So please don't. And I want to address, because I don't want to make this a whole Pete Hendrickson thing. Because I had him on the show, and it was very pleasant, and I would welcome the opportunity to talk to him again. But I remember asking him, and I've asked other people, do you have any evidence whatsoever to show that you're a taxpayer? No! Why are you filing a tax return then? What's the point of filing a zero return if there's no evidence you're a taxpayer? So he was never able to give a coherent reason why. And I've gotten this so many times from tax agents. Why did your client file a tax return if they're not taxpayers and there's no evidence? Because you forced them. It's under threat, duress, and coercion. And I wrote in a recent article about this. They'll actually deny that you're forced to pay taxes and file a return. You're talking to someone who's either grossly delusional or is a pathological liar.
Oh yeah. I've actually seen lots of politicians, if they're confronted on this issue, they say we have a voluntary tax system. And yeah, voluntary. It's a beautiful word when you throw it out there. In other words,
that word again.
No, if we're going to come and get you, we're going to do it in the dead of night, where your neighbors aren't going to know. So, in other words, it's not headline news that we come and only when we want to use it as a threat. This is, I'm a voluntarist myself, and I find it very hard to, first of all, I imagine that voluntarism is kind of like the ultimate form of personal responsibility, which, to be honest, I think probably 80% of Americans, and this isn't an insult. I'm just thinking that maybe 80%, if they saw the terms, would maybe, without knowing how it would play out, would probably opt out and want some kind of big brother system in place, at least as a catch-all, something to fall back on. But I really feel like it's very difficult to work with. I couldn't imagine any time in the near future that we have us having a voluntarist government system anywhere in the world, really. It might take another 100 years before something like that happens, because it's such a revolutionary idea. It's so simple, but you have all these oligarchs, you have all these people that are either psychopathic, poneuralic psychopaths, or whatever it is. They decide they're going to essentially run this kind of protection racket. Government, to me, is kind of a protection racket, just like a mob, and it's a really good and really effective one. And we all buy into it, and we seem to appreciate it a lot of times. We seem to think we're willing to go down and vote for the red guy or the blue guy. Like you say, we're willing to fill out a tax form and to send it in, and answer they're addressing us as dear taxpayer, which right away there's a problem there. Because I haven't filed a return in 10 years personally, and so I have a drawer full of letters from the IRS. I don't open them.
Well, I would suggest that eventually you do, but I wanted to really just address this. Nothing good ever comes because they'll just use that against you. Well, you had an opportunity to address this, but you should have. So it could really work against you. But I don't see it the same way. Maybe it's because I've engaged IRS agents every day for 15 years. I mean, that's what I do. Is I engage these agents and get tickets thrown, assessments thrown out, and not always. So to me, being so engaged with politicians, and maybe Anthony, sees it the same way because he's engaged in for so many years as a journalist, that to me it's very simple. You've got a group of men and women that are forcing the majority of society to pay them. That is really what, as complicated. That's a verifiable truth. That's not up for reasonable dispute. I mean, yeah, investigate, be a skeptic, and verify it. And do we just add that to the pile of evidence we have already? And everything from there is just distraction. It's not, the minutia of how they go about doing that really is not as important as really understanding they're forcing you to pay them. So and then I don't know how you meant a voluntarious government. I just wanted to throw out that if they're not forcing you to pay them, it's not a government.
It's extortion, and it's plain and simple extortion. And I mean to show you how ridiculous the system is, I'm sure you guys know who Lark and Rose is, right?
Sure.
Okay. Now, are you familiar with what he's been through as far as this court case? I know he's known for a lot of different things. In the essence of time, Lark and Rose. If you were to look up a Wikipedia page, and I know Wikipedia is not 100%, the standard of all truth, but there's actually a page called Tax Protester History in the United States, okay, and it's a pretty awesome page just for the fact that Larkin is on it, and Larkin is, I'm not sure, there's only about a dozen, maybe a dozen and a half people on here. It says Larkin Rose, an adherent of the 861 argument, and I remember when I booked him to come on Adam Kokesh's show to talk, and we talked about this, was sentenced to 15 months in prison for willful failure to file income tax returns in 5 years, in which the government alleged that that his income was approximately $500,000. He was released from prison in December 2006. Now, what's interesting about this is he wasn't charged for like, oh, you didn't pay your taxes, or you forgot, and all that could be forgiven. No, it was because he willfully made it clear that he understood that he was supposed to pay taxes and chose not to. That's the reason that he was actually charged and spent time in prison because of it. So a lot of these people say, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, or I filed it wrong. But for the fact that he chose to put his feet down and say, basically, fuck you, he actually got charged for willfully not paying this extortion that they were trying to force people into doing. And I think that's a very important thing for people to know, is that it's number one, yes, it's extortion, but he was charged because he decided not to do it. And as far as like freedom to fascism, trying to find that exact paperwork that says you need to do this or you need to do that, I mean, you can go there if you want, and that's fine, but think of how many other things are just straight extortion, and you could literally call fascism. Look at your car insurance, okay? Now, through laws that are passed by politicians, and they scribble on a piece of paper that says, this is now the law, you are now forced to go to a private company to purchase car insurance. Now, say you live a long life, okay? Say you drive 60 years and you get up in age and you're not going to drive anymore and you're going to turn your license into the DMV. Say you never even caused a fender bender, nothing, no accidents whatsoever. Over a lifetime, I've been meaning to figure out the exact numbers. I don't know what it can be, but I would imagine it's probably in the hundreds of thousands. I'm sure you all know that. How much of that do you get back? Zero. You get nothing back, okay? So what kind of system do we have that forces you to engage in this system where you have to, the government says, we will arrest you, we will fine you, we will throw you in jail, you know, kidnap you, lock you in a cage if you don't do X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z being you have to buy insurance from a private corporation, and after you give them thousands and thousands, maybe sometimes hundreds of thousands, and never cause an incident, you would think at the end of your life, if you never did anything wrong, you never cost them a penny, you would think you might get 5%, I don't know, 10%. Am I being too greedy here? You think you might get something back, but no, you get absolutely nothing back. So what they're doing is they're saying is, you give us money, period, just for you having the right to do this. And even if something goes wrong, there's what, $500,000 deductibles where you have to pay up front, where they know half the time you're paying out of your pocket to begin with. They don't have to pay anything. And then even if you take it to the next step, they do everything they can to try to find a way where they don't have to pay it. Then, even if you do happen to win, what do? They jack your prices up. Now, if you tell me that's not one of the biggest extortion scams in the history of this country, if not this world, I don't know what is. But, I mean, that's just one thing. And now they're trying to, you know, bring it into healthcare and so many different aspects of your life. But what it is it's collectivism. It's collectivism on a huge scale where they're forcing you, saying, "Oh well, driving's a privilege. You don't have to drive." And well, I'm sorry, all of these things that people think are natural rights, that you have a right to own a weapon, or, you know, freedom of speech, and which I agree should be natural rights. But when the government has the power to say, "Hey, you are a felon," or "you are this," or "you are that," so you no longer have a Second Amendment. When that is the case, that's not a right. That is a privilege. So all the people say, "Oh yeah, I have a Second Amendment." No, you don't. You have a privilege by, you know, this oligarch, this plutocracy that claims authority over you, and they, you know, scrape some crumbs off the table and say, "Here, you know, fight over what little bit we're going to throw at you, and we'll throw a couple social issues at you, you know, just to keep you divided, so you don't realize how bad we really are screwing you over." But that's pretty much the protection racket in a nutshell. But that's what it is. I'm sorry.
Well, it is a protection racket, but I want to address that. I know Lark, and I've had him on my show a number of times. It's always great to see him at Libertopia and some of these, you know, libertarian, voluntarist, anarchy kind of functions. Everyone who is arrested for failure to file is because they, you know, the accusation is that they believed that they were required. So if someone did not have a good faith belief that they were required to file, they should be found innocent. And that's exactly what happened with Larkin. Larkin was pushing the DOJ to actually prosecute him because he did not believe that, given Section 861, he believed. In fact, it came out in his trial where the judge said, "I believe, Mr. Rose, that you are sincere in your belief that you're not required to pay." The judge should have sent everybody home right then and there, because and I've caught a little bit of criticism on this, and I can understand, because maybe it's a little more sophisticated or complicated of an issue than some of the things we talk about. From a technical standpoint, because, like you said, and I agree, it's extortion. It's do this or we will imprison or kill you. Because of that, no one, even the most diehard statist, in the way I look at things, and what the facts and the evidence tell me, nobody is able to form the requisite willfulness to not pay taxes, because everyone is forced. Nobody pays taxes because they want to. And it doesn't matter if they say, "I'm happy to do that." Well, a rape victim can say the same thing because they're ashamed, or this, you know, because they did something and weren't able to defend themselves. The mere fact, as long as the coercion is there is no merit whatsoever to say that it was willful. Zero. And anyway, so Larkin's thing should have been thrown out right from the actual right when the judge said that, which was completely ridiculous for them to proceed any further. And that's the only evidence you need to hear that the fix was in. For the judge to actually say it was not willful was a disgrace. And well, I better.
No, you're absolutely right, and you know, I like so much Larkin does, and you know, he's a great guy, and I certainly don't want to go on a tangent, but you know, for the audience, if you haven't seen the video, when should you shoot a cop? You need to watch that video because, in my opinion, that is one of the best, well put, one of the best videos ever uploaded to YouTube. You need to watch that, but that's for a different day. But it looks like we have some callers that want to get in on the show here. Let's see. Do we have names or states, cities on these callers?
Yeah, who's the first caller, Ryan? Jen? Is Jen on the phone? Okay, we got Jen on the phone. Go ahead, Jen.
Awesome, Jen. What city and state you calling from, Jen?
Liverpool, New York.
Oh, awesome. So, what's going on?
I just had a question about this week. There was a problem with legal actions being taken against channels on YouTube. One being my own, which is actually a very small channel, but Free Radio Revolution and Red Pill Revolution, Team Wake 'em Up, were all threatened with legal actions against putting out information about the Houston shooting. I was wondering what everybody's opinions were about that. Do you think it's real? Is it fake? Do we have something to worry about? Do you think they're just shills? You know, it's scary that these people are saying that, you know, they're going to sue us for trying to expose the truth about it.
I could add to this if and somebody, you know, anybody else could obviously add too.
I don't.
What I found out in my experience is that you're right about both of what you said. There are people out there that engage in what I think is ridiculous and the most counterproductive things you could ever do, and they have these basically like YouTube wars, and they create a bunch of stock accounts, and they find people that they don't like, and they do have the ability to take down your channel. You do have a way to fight back. It's not easy. It's time consuming. It's a pain in the ass. You could get things taken care of. And before I tell you the last thing, what I would recommend is you know, going through, make sure that everything you upload to your YouTube channel is 100% original content. And even when you do that, some of these people will come after you and claim that I know stories where people, their video was 100% all original content, and somebody else claimed it as theirs, and they ended up winning. So there are horror stories like that, but also at the same time, I have recently learned that YouTube has been clamping down. I guess technology is getting a lot better, and with people monetizing videos, they're looking to do everything they can, obviously, to shorten their bottom line. And they have all these bots that go out and try to find, whether it be a music, even if it's something that even comes close, they'll flag it, and you have to file what's basically a legal document. And in order for them to keep your video off of YouTube, they would have to take you to court and sue you. So if you feel that you're in the right, fight it. Send back your legal copy, your county counterclaim, and say you're willing to fight it. But if it is, like, if you did record something from the television and straight upload it, and it had nothing to do with, news commentary, and it's a big company with a lot of money, you see, that's the thing. They try to scare a lot of people with these big companies with a lot of money, saying, oh, obviously we'll get crushed. Well, at the same time, they don't want to have to do that. But if you do something wrong, they are clamping down on a lot of people. So it could go either way. There are trolls that are ruining people, and the YouTube itself is getting better at. I just today, somebody I know got in touch with me. He had his first strike, and it was for complete original content. So they are getting better at sending out these bots. And this one particular guy they hired, he said that they're getting 1.5 million people a day for copyright infringements. So yeah, just fight it and do your best to try to stay all original content.
Hey guys, it looks like when you talk about America freedom to fascism, Gary pop up, and he's joined the chat with us. Hey Gary, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's going on?
Hey Gary, how you doing? It's been a long time.
Oh my goodness, how you guys doing out there?
Gary, preemptive strike on Mother Earth.
Preemptive strike on the world.
For our safety.
Blow up the world so we don't kill ourselves.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just to be on the safe side.
It's just funny. He calls us right when we're supposed to be going off the air, but we have been told that we can go a little longer.
For like 25 minutes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Also, we have a call right now too.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Jen. Go ahead. Jen, are you still there?
What I was saying was, how do they keep going after when people are doing their copyright thing beforehand? How can they still be going after these?
You know what the problem is that a lot of them have, like I said,
what I did was make my channel grow. I went from like 100 subs to like 250 subs within like 48 hours. It's like amazing. It's like, thanks, You haven't even threatened me personally. They went and they threatened me on Free Radio's channel.
Oh, okay.
Like, okay, what was the point of that? I think they're just full of shit.
All right, so it sounds like things worked out in your case, is what you're saying.
Oh, is this Jen Open Your Eyes?
Crap.
Yes.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I saw your name on that list. It's ridiculous.
I'm not going to shut up. I'm sorry. I'm going to speak the truth and get people to wake up.
Good. Well, good job. Keep up the good work, and I wish you the best.
I think also we were all very concerned at that as well, considering that we were all talking about discussing this shooting event and putting it out there. So we were just concerned if they were real trolls or actually going to follow up on their threats. And that's what. And Jen was one of the smaller channels that was concerned about that. And it's awesome to see you, Jen. I didn't realize you were the same Jen Open Your Eyes, but she's a subscriber, and so that was a concern for many people. So
yes, it is. Open your eyes.
Well, thank you, Jen. Keep up the great work, and stay in touch with all of us, and keep doing your thing.
All right, thanks. Yeah, my dog's going crazy.
All right. Well, thank you for calling.
All right, thank you.
Did we have another caller on the line, Ryan? No? Okay.
The second caller had actually already dropped.
Okay.
So I mean, like I hear a lot about the channels being whether or not it's trolls or whether or not it's paid people or whatnot. People, it really seems that whatever force is behind it is really just playing on the fear of people talking about these things, and I find that if we're going to be reading this stuff alone or just being knowledgeable to it, I mean, we'd be naive to not think that that we're not being watched or whatever anyway. So I kind of just thought, if we're going to be looking into this stuff anyways, we shouldn't have to worry about that in itself. I think, personally, I think it's trolls. I mean, I think it's easy enough for anybody just to go in. For all we know, it could be like a 4chan raid. You know, and it could be real as well. I don't know, but I mean, I think there's going to be a day that it gets all real to us, all too real to us, anyways. You know, so I think we should make sure that, you know, we're not kept in by fear of people just posting to websites. Because I mean, as there was some really serious stuff in that. That being said, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, we really have to realize that that's what's going to keep us in, is worrying about people that do this. We have to keep going.
Right.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Well, so what is the main question here? I'm trying to understand, because I'm coming in late, so forgive me for
Basically,
what's the polling going on?
there's accounts on YouTube going on popular channels, threatening lawsuits and even threatening people's lives. And a caller called in asking if this was legitimate, if they could actually sue somebody for claiming that a shooting was a hoax and that people were actors. In other words, on CNN, if a YouTube channel came out and claimed that some of the witnesses and stuff were just acting, paid actors, could they be sued? Or
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so either.
Yeah, definite defamation and
I mean,
slander.
who's the damaged party? Because someone's making a claim, there's no damaged party, so there can't be any lawsuit.
Right, that's what I figured, and I gotta say, my gut tells me it's government trolls, because we already know that these entities exist. I mean, we had that article, or many articles, written about a month ago or two about these YouTube super flaggers that would go around.
Oh yeah.
Yep, flagging videos, and their flags would count as, like, you know, high alert type flags, because they were super flaggers. And you know, it's not a big jump to conclusion to say that, well, they probably have trolls too, threatening people, manipulating YouTube users to not speak out, or manipulating them to feel a certain way, or this, that, and the other.
They've already admitted, you know, Cass Sun, as far back as Cass Sunstein, talking about wanting an army of internet, you know, we use the term trolls, but to engage in counter speech, you know, to go after, when I say go after, like I said, engage in counter speech with quote-unquote conspiracy theorists and
they're
people
doing
who,
it. No, they're doing it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, they're doing it, and it's extremely obvious. And you know, I think that's why I think they're starting to perfect it, and that's why you're starting to see a lot more YouTube channels getting strikes now. Where a year, 2, 3 years ago, I mean, it was very difficult to get a strike. Now you're seeing people getting strikes for, I mean, things that they shouldn't be getting strikes for. But you know, that's why I say stick with original content. And other than that, you know, as far as that, you know, being worried about the government, I'm sure we're all on the same page here when we say fuck them. You know.
Oh, you're talking about Cass Sunstein, Goebbels Reborn, Goebbels Jr. Yes, and
Yes.
he the same guy. This guy, he supposedly forgot about the paper he wrote on that.
Right.
He forgot.
He forgot.
He couldn't remember. He can't remember.
I've got Cass Sunstein's book, Conspiracy Theories and the Dangers They Pose, or whatever that is. Yeah, he talks about it.
He forgot he wrote that.
Yeah. Exactly. And he wrote that paper. I know he wrote a book too, but he wrote the white paper. It was years ago, about infiltrating the conspiracy movement and the anarchist movement and stuff like that, and actually not only causing havoc and being a provocateur, but also putting out disinformation to you know, coerce people into thinking things that aren't true, and thinking, you know, this, that, and the other. But so he wrote that years ago. You got to think now they probably have that perfected, and of course most of this isn't going to be in the public eye. It's going to be behind the scenes, and it's going to be secret. It's, you know.
I mean, I agree with everything you said, with the exception of, you know, most of it not being in. I don't think any of it will be in the public eye, and yeah, as far as they probably have it, they definitely have it. I mean, I've gotten to the point where I had trolls literally tell me that they work for the government. I mean, I've had, and I'm sure Gary knows, and a lot of us, like, we get death threats. I've had people call my phone, and I mean, that's why you just can't let this bother you ever. If you're thin skinned, you're obviously in the wrong business. So that's why I
Yeah,
just say,
yeah, no kidding.
fuck them. I mean,
Yeah, this-
I don't waste any time on these people whatsoever. I just keep doing what I'm doing, and that's that.
And Mike, or Anthony, I'm sorry. If we could, let's try to. I know the profanity's been real low. Let's try to keep it a little bit lower if we could, if that would be okay.
PG-13.
Yeah,
PG.
you got it.
We did have a question, if I may, that we missed about the white flag over the Brooklyn Bridge, and for Mark and Anthony. But Mark, if you want to go first, I don't know if you felt on that.
Well, this is the first I've heard of it, so I've been waiting to hear. And I did go to Anthony's website. I know he's got a video about that. But yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to have, if Anthony can bring us up to speed and let us know what's going on, because it's the first I heard of it.
Okay, then definitely Anthony, if you can inform us.
All right, I'll do the best I can on this one. Obviously, this it no pun intended, but raised the flag when I heard about it, and I looked into it. And now, for the fact that two American flags had reportedly been replaced with white flags on the top of the Brooklyn Bridge on both sides. All right, that in and of itself is a real big deal. You're talking 273 feet in the air. That's very high. That's way up there. The flags themselves, the reports vary. I have Fox News reported the flags were 18 to 12. Another outlet reported 18 by 20. But either way, okay, those are real big flags. When you fold them up, they're going to weigh a decent amount. They're going to fill a book bag, all right? It's probably going to weigh 20, 25 pounds. So if you don't have access to getting up those 273 feet to getting to where those flags are, it would be extremely difficult, all right? Now, I heard before I came on this show right here, I was on another show, and I heard that they do have 5 suspects, all right? Now, I don't know anything about the suspects. I heard that they were caught on video, because that was one of the questions I was asking. Where is all this video? So, if New York wants to brag about having such great anti-terror measures, if somebody could just crawl up the Brooklyn Bridge, steal the American flags, and replace them with white flags, then that seems like a big deal. So I'm not exactly sure how that went down. One of the most recent pictures I got, I was able to. Well, actually, anybody could look at it. It's pretty clear, but if you zoom in, you could really see it. On the bottom left-hand corner, you could see a handprint in white, okay, which to me kind of represents if they went up there with a spray can and spray painted these flags and left a handprint behind afterwards. I didn't put that in the video because I didn't know about that at the time. I found this picture later on. If you just type in,
the white handprint reminds me of like Saruman, from like Lord of the Rings.
yeah, right. But I mean, as far as what it could possibly represent, if people are trying to say it's a signal of something, I mean, the first thing I would think is if somebody was trying to send a signal, everybody knows the upside down flag is America in distress. The white flag is surrender. As far as the Brooklyn Bridge, I don't know if it was trying to say that Brooklyn is a melting pot, it represents America, or if it was just something that it was opportunistic, that they had the ability to do this and get away with it. I don't see how I mean, they said they found pots and pans over the lights of the Brooklyn Bridge. In the morning, they got reports saying that the lights went out, and when they went out to investigate, they found out there were pots and pans that were placed over the lights. I guess it's possible, but to think 5 people were able to climb, the Brooklyn Bridge on both sides, and with flags and replace these flags. I don't know. It seems really far fetched. I'm not sure what the symbolism is in it. That's pretty much all I have on it. If you guys have any ideas of why somebody would do this, what the reasoning is, what the symbolism is, go ahead and shoot. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have on it.
I think it's incredible that they're saying it's not terrorism instead of just saying it is terrorism and trying to justify another $15 in the budget.
Wait, saying so that you think it's incredible that they're saying it's not terrorism and that it is?
No, I'm not saying making a comment one way or the other. I think it's incredible that they're not using it as an excuse to bump up the budget. Oh, it's terrorism.
Right.
We need another $15 billion or the sky's going to fall down. I mean, everything seems to be terrorism. I mean, I know that just what I do when I say on my show that the fact that we recommend not using the Federal Reserve System and recommend using things like Bitcoin, that is the definition, the FBI's definition of domestic terrorism.
Having 7 days worth of food is the definition of a possible domestic terrorist.
Yeah, and then they come out and say on the news that you need to be well prepared with 2 weeks of food. So they contradict themselves, and I think one's to promote fear, and the other is to discourage being prepared for something that might be fearful. So it's total up in the air. They contradict themselves every single day. So we know that. But
look what they're doing in California. They got a state law that says you can't, because of the drought, it's a $500 or $1,000 fine, whatever it is, to water your lawn. And then all the local municipalities are fining people $500 for not mowing, watering the lawn. Like,
yeah, it's ridiculous. What do you expect?
You're living in Alice in Wonderland. I mean, would you expect anything less?
That's
true.
Well,
it's like, look, this is where I recommend, and I mentioned this earlier in the show. This is where these guys need to get a bong, do some hits, and just chill out. Because I can't imagine the stress of someone in because there are people being attacked for this stuff out there now, and what do? Do you water the lawn? Or do you not water the lawn, or do you tell them all to go get effed? The stress that I hate California, by the way.
If you try appeasing them, you're off on the wrong foot right from the gate. Because there is no appeasing them, and there's a big part of me that thinks that that's exactly how they want it. They just want us, mentally screwed up and questioning everything, and get us to the point where it's yes sir, no sir. Okay, go back to 1980. G. Edward Griffin, Tom Schuster, when he interviewed Yuri Bezmenov, the ex-KGB guy, who said in 20, 30 years Americans won't know what to believe. They won't know what the truth is. They won't know what's right, what's wrong, what's up, what's down. Okay, you take that and you fast forward 30 years, okay, and you look at this country now. Well, it looks like this guy was spot on with his analysis in the demoralization period of America and what has happened and what is going on now, because most Americans, they in my opinion, it seems like most of them have no idea what's right, what's wrong, what who to stand for or what to do, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, and it seems as though that's really the main focus all throughout the past at least 50 years is not only deception but chaos and confusion. That's why we have a lot of the propaganda. We know a lot of Hollywood is controlled by the leftist media and just the elites in general, they'll put out these messages that glamorize, things like violence and sexualizing everything, and they'll mix that with something that's good, like standing up for somebody being bullied or something like that. Anything, they'll mix it with something that's good, so it confuses you, and then the whole thing is about confusion and chaos, and I think that's really what the whole illegal immigrant thing is right now. They're just trying to cause chaos.
Yeah.
It's like ordo out of chaos. Ordo out of chaos.
I believe that's pretty obvious because, honestly, I think it's kind of funny. The one place that I found that was somewhat accurate as far as, at least in my opinion, as far as the illegal immigrations where they're talking 50 and 60,000 children, well, that number is from 2004 to now, which would be, a decade. And I question now, and all of you should question. They're reporting 50, 60,000 children are, just showing up at the border, okay? And I would say, where's the video? Where's the picture? Okay, and we did this on my show the other day, all right? And we did the actual math. Do you know how long it would take to walk from Honduras to the border of Mexico and the United States? 21 days non-stop. Okay, that's not stopping for sleep, for bathroom breaks, for eating. Okay, and we're talking about children here. All right, supposedly. So they're trying to say 50,000 children showed up like in a matter of like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. The numbers are just off the charts ridiculous. All right, and for the fact that people are buying this hook, line, and sinker. Like, don't you think, as if you've seen like 50,000 children walking 2,000 miles, the length of Mexico, don't you think somebody would pull out a phone or a video camera or something and say, hey guys, hey, where are you going? Like, where are you going? And then when they get to the border, supposedly these kids were... they were complaining that their hot dogs weren't as warm as they could be. Like, come on, man. Like, if this isn't propaganda that is trying to rile up the people, the TV watchers, I don't know what is. I mean, it's just absolute nonsense. Where's the video? You 50, 60,000 people? Show me one picture where you could see more than 20 or 30 people in one picture or a video. Just one. That's all I'm asking for. One picture or video where you could actually see more than a couple dozen people. You're talking numbers like 50, 60,000, so I think you should see the, pictures like that, but do you? No. So,
hey, you sounds like you're talking about the Sandy Hook kids, because that's the same thing. The most kids you see is in the one iconic picture, which is 12 kids in a single file line.
Right, in a single file.
But just to bring if I may, we've had three more guests come in recently. I just want to mention Press Reset Earth was one of them. We have Police State Radio, and then we have Free Radio Revolution, who just now entered. So I want to welcome those guys in. Welcome.
Press that reset already.
As long as I could see Gary driving from one place to another and see Gary getting dressed and all that, I'm good to go on my end.
Hey, he's bringing the realism on the show. I like that.
Yeah, Gary's hardcore, man. Nobody can match it.
Preemptive strike on the world.
You got it, buddy. And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, real quick, when we were up in New Hampshire, I think it was Ron Paul, we were out bullhorning on the streets, and there were a bunch of Mitt Romney supporters, and me and Gary just went crazy with it and had a blast, started bullhorning, saying preemptive strike on Mother Earth, preemptive strike on the planet to be safe, because they were saying we need to be safe, we need to, bomb all these countries. So we're like, all right, let's just bomb the entire world, and then everybody's safe. And they finally picked up on the hint, but we had a blast.
Yeah, that's funny. And I kind of want to switch subjects.
Press reset. I had a question before you. We had a
Hey,
question.
real quick, guys. I hate to ditch out, but my phone battery is about to die. But I've really enjoyed the conversation. I look forward to popping in again.
See you again, Gary.
Bye, Gary.
man.
It's nice not talking to you.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, Brian Roberts let me know about this, so thanks, Brian, for heads up on that. And
Who the hell is Brian Roberts?
Brian who?
All right. Thanks, Gary.
All right, Gary. I'll
guys.
talk to you later, brother.
I can't resist.
We had a question to press reset. Sorry, but before you get to that, if that's okay,
Sure.
The question was for Mark, and it's if you're familiar with Kate of Gaia, Kate and the legal name ideas. I guess the YouTube channel is Babylon is Fallen. If you're familiar with that.
I don't think I am, but...
No, that was for Mark.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I thought maybe we had more than one. I am familiar with it. I talk about it all the time on my show. I don't see any merit to that, and I bring this out a lot because, we've got plenty of evidence. You go to my website, markstevens.net, and I'm asking the politicians directly. You can ask the police this. They'll all tell you this is how they operate, and anyone can verify this. And if you do, please, if you got it recorded, send it to me. I'd love to post it. They don't, without even knowing who you are, the fact that you're physically in Canada, they believe that their laws apply to you and they have jurisdiction before they even know your name. So how do you explain how they're taking jurisdiction and just by walking up to somebody they've never met before? They don't know their name, and whether they have your name or not, they will arrest you. And they will put, and they will, so it doesn't make any, to me, I've never seen any actual proof for that is how they're operating, because you've got this thing where if it's true, you're talking about taking every single government employee and pulling them aside and saying, we've been tricking everybody. And if you send them something with this name that their parents were forced to get in the first place, we're tricking them to pay us. They're not tricking anyone into paying them other than to convince them that they have a right to steal. Okay, and that's part of the deception, obviously, because it's a lot of fraud and deception.
Well,
but the idea about the name I don't see has any merit at all.
Right. Yeah, and that is tricking somebody. I would consider that tricking somebody into falling for all this stuff and obeying it. But what was I gonna say? But yeah, no, they have jurisdiction. They think they have jurisdiction wherever you are. And have you ever looked into some of the information regarding, us being corporations and stuff like that, and them selling our social security numbers to each other as collateral and all that? It's a very wide spectrum. Very wide subject, but that's something I'm very interested in, and I'm learning about right now. So, what are your comments on that?
Obviously, we can follow a paper trail with the bonds. We can see that they are selling the bonds based on taxes, which are forced. It's extortion, that they're stealing, so that they can sell the Chinese bonds on the knowing that, hey, we're going to tax these jackasses for the rest of their effing lives, okay? You're going to get your money back. And the Chinese are, of course, doing the same thing to their people. So I can see it there, but this idea that they're creating a corporation, I've never seen. Show me the paper trail. No one could convince me, and I think I'm a fairly rational guy, even though I am from Long Island, that you're going to have an enormous, worldwide, multi-trillion-dollar bond program without a paper trail.
So in Canada,
not going to happen.
In Canada, I'm pretty sure that your birth certificate it's what starts your legal entity. So that's like your corporation. It's your name. It's not you, but it's a second entity, and that's who you represent when you go to court. That's what all your government documents go under. So basically the creation of your birth certificate creates you, like when you do anything regarding to the government. So when you enter into things into that, you are giving up like more of your rights, and you assume that their services are like you are underneath them. What happens is you are collateral, like you were saying, press reset, under what's the head of state here, who is the Queen, or the Crown, which is, the City of London Trust, the corporation itself, right? So I'm not sure about how it works in America, and once again, I'm not like a lawyer or anything in Canada or anything like that, but I have spoken to a few people, and there are a few of them in law school that this isn't really something that's taught either, but basically this is something that they were looking into, and at one point they looked into it and found that the person who owns the long form of your birth certificate actually is like the owner, I forget what the word is, like the debtor of of your legal entity. Mm-hmm. And he was trying to retrieve his long form. And after about 3 or 4 years of trying to do this, with his experience of going through law school, they eventually just basically told him, we've lost it, we couldn't find it. So be that what it will or whatnot. And I'm not too sure how it works in the States, but I do know that there in Canada, like you really surrender yourself to the Queen. You pledge oath.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, like
Go ahead. Well, let's look at this, and I've done this many times already. It doesn't matter if it's Canada or the U.S., because it's the same. It's supposed to be the same scheme, if you will.
Right.
What evidence do you rely on, though, to show that the long form of the birth certificate is owned by an individual man or woman, and that by getting the birth certificate, which is usually under threat, duress, and coercion, at least it is here, it somehow creates a corporation?
Well, it's I think it's the way that it's set up in your long form. It's pretty much the same way as like any other company or corporation is created. It has like the same, the serial numbers or whatnot. Once again, I'm not like an economist or lawyer, but it's basically it's setting up the same thing. Pardon?
I said I'm glad for that you're not a lawyer.
Yeah, thanks. But basically, it's set up so that it is your legal entity. Once you walk into a court of law and you cross into like the bar or whatnot, you are actually representing yourself as your legal entity. I've heard as well.
Wait, Justin, but that's not really answering. You can because a regular corporation, if you go through, you're saying it's like a regular corporation because it's got a serial number, and the serial number could just be a simple accounting number. A regular corporation has articles of incorporation that are filed with a particular government office, let's say the Corporation Commission here in Arizona, or the Secretary of State, where it happens to be. But where are you? I still don't see where having the birth certificate, is somehow creating a corporation, because something like that would be common knowledge of people who are employees of the government. And so what you're saying is, two things here, because I know we're running out of time. Yeah. You've got evidence that you're actually a corporation, and then I would like to see, and I've never seen where there's actually evidence that the police and the courts, like the judges, are actually looking at you as, we're not looking at a human being, we're only dealing with a corporation, because it comes from, and I'm sorry for being long-winded, but it seems to come from this myth that keeps getting perpetuated. Well, governments are fictions and can only interface with fictions. And I've never seen any kind of proof for that, because if you go through even historically, the idea is, well, what do we do about murder charges and things like that? It just doesn't seem like there's any actual evidence. So I'm going to be quiet here. So get back to the so what actual evidence that they're creating a corporation by doing the birth certificate?
As is for the number or whatnot, take a look into our social insurance number. I guess it's kind of like your SSN.
Yeah, it's very different from the United States Constitution. It's absolutely no constitution. They just fart the laws out and the acts out as they go along. They don't even have to pass it.
Yeah, the deeper you go in Canada, it is more hocus pocus than you'd think. So I'd say take a look at why the name on your ID card is all caps letters in Canada. The reason why that's associated into your SIN. And also, and I know you're saying you were talking about admiralty law may not apply. I know in Canada it's never been like rebuked or anything like that. It's never been ever, what's the word, I guess, disestablished at all. We still really are. We're tied into, through our social insurance, we are like in debt to the Queen, well, the Crown of England.
Yeah.
We really are. Like, that's our head of state. Like, our prime minister is just like the head of our lower house.
Yeah, what they did when they made this country is what they're doing now. The agenda hasn't changed one bit.
Well, but it still begs the question. And so, if you listen to like the calls that I did with a British Columbia law professor, and I've done it with the Attorney General's office in Ontario, Canada, that the basic operating presumption is if you're physically in Canada, then the laws apply to you. So if someone like myself, and I use myself as an example, if I may not, I don't have, I'm not from Canada, although like we talked earlier, I do have family that came from Canada. But I can go into Canada physically, and I've got none of these things that you guys are talking about. I don't have a name in all caps. I don't have a birth certificate. I don't have social insurance. They still believe that the Constitution or the laws, whatever they're calling them, the bylaws, their law, they still believe that those apply to me, and I don't have any of those things that you're talking about.
So, as for like you're coming into Canada, do you have a citizenship of Canada, or you're just like somebody who is coming into our country as tourist?
I'm coming in. I am crossing over that imaginary line from New Hampshire. I'm just walking over, and their position is, and it's verifiable, we can ask them, I've already done it, we can ask more of them. Without even knowing my name, without knowing anything about me, they believe that the laws of Canada apply and they have jurisdiction. So if that's true, and since that's true, then someone please show me the merit in saying that, oh, well, they're tricking you by forcing you to get an SSN, by forcing you to have a birth certificate, and forcing you to do all those. Because to me, it's not necessary to get beyond, to explain all this, it's not necessary to get beyond it. We've got men and women over here, they're willing to kill you in order to get you to do X, Y, Z. And that's really... the whole thing. So somebody wants to say, oh, that's conspiracy theory. No, that's conspiracy fact, because I know for a fact that the legislators, people called legislators, are passing laws and then directing and ordering these people to kill me if I don't pay them.
Yeah, it's not like it's not what is already there, the laws of the land. It's what you enter into, from what I understand. So it's when you get your social insurance number, that's when you solidify that agreement. Right, it's agreement? The same thing when you.
But which agreement are you talking? What agreement are you solidifying?
Well, you're going into the social system. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, if I can just butt in here, if I'm not mistaken, I think what Mark is getting at here is the fact that even if all that were true, the fact that we are a corporation and we basically, our social security number is there to determine us as a corporation. And even if that were true, and even if we separated ourselves from that and became quote-unquote sovereign, that wouldn't affect the way the government treats you either way. No matter what, no matter who you are or who you claim to be or what you claim to be, if you enter into Canada, you have to abide by those laws. And there are men with guns that will point guns at you and tell you that you have to abide by those laws, no matter what you claim yourself to be. And really, I guess it just comes down to perspective. And, if you want to look at it like this, in the mind of a sovereign individual, what do you consider illegitimate and legitimate? So that's really, I think that's what Mark was getting at. Am I right?
Yeah, if all the, I think you summed it up pretty well. Even if all those things are true, why would someone like myself do they do the exact same thing, that they hold the same presumptions, and they're equally unable to, in both situations, to show any kind of evidence? Because even if we accept as true the name game, it all still comes down to force. You're forced to get a birth certificate. You're forced to get an SSN. You're forced to pay them. And regardless of, in both cases, it's the same operating presumption. And I think it's the logical way, and in Occam's razor, the simplest explanation is usually the right one. And I keep going back to that because I've engaged these people so many times, and they'll tell you, and I know, well, Mark, how can you take their... We know that's how they operate, though. We know if they see us physically in Idaho or Ontario, they believe that their laws apply. And...
Right.
So, regardless of whether they know your name or not, they're still going to act in the same manner. And I know a judge, and I've spoken with judges, I've spoken with police officers and prosecutors, and I've asked them just for the hell of it, hey, do you look at people with that the all caps name is a corporation? And no, that's ridiculous. Now, could they be lying to me? Yes, but none of that changes the operating presumption, which is really, when it comes down to it, the only really important thing that's relevant, especially when they're attacking us and we're trying to get that resolved. And it's the only thing that's really relevant in discrediting them and getting to a free voluntary society, a society where it is not acceptable to violate basic principles of morality just because you call yourself a government.
Right.
Right, and I think... I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. I wanted to jump in real quick if you didn't mind. Yeah, that was an awesome explanation, Mark. We did have one more question, and I wanted to go ahead and start wrapping this up. We've gone like 40 minutes over than we normally do, but that's great because it's great information, great conversations. We had another question, and this was also for Mark, asking if you are familiar with Kate of Gaia and the legal names idea.
Oh, I asked that question already.
Yeah, we asked that.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I missed it.
How about a final question, if we do have time, that we did actually have, that I was about to bring up? Okay.
We can spend. Let's say we got 10 more minutes, and we'll round it out.
Okay, switching gears if Mark doesn't mind, and
not at all. I'm going to have to turn a light on here soon, unless you guys can still see me.
We can see you.
Yep.
Okay, we're good then.
All right. The question was regarding the latest news psyop story going around. Of course, the MH17 story. What does everyone think about that, and the end game for that? What do you guys think?
I was just looking at that, man. I was just checking it out, seeing all the witnesses there. That's what I was analyzing myself, is watching all the different family members being interviewed on Canadian television and then on CNN and stuff like that. They had a couple women on CNN with Anderson Pooper Scooper Cooper, and it's a difficult thing to say totally, but to me, like, I'm seeing crisis actors. I can't say for sure, but it looks like there's a lot of scripts being read. And of course, this whole thing is there's so many things that don't add up to it. I really think this is a Western plot. This is a Bilderberg type plot to stabilize the Russian regime.
Right. I'd have to agree. And my personal belief, after doing a lot of research into this, and I'm sure at least I know Red Pill and Jeff and Justin have seen the video I made compilating all the evidence.
It was a great video.
Yeah, thank you. I tried to get it out as quick as I could, and a lot of evidence was coming out, and this is all
Case
confirmed.
closed.
Yeah, case closed, right? Exactly. and this is all confirmed now because I believe, I forget his name, but he was highly involved in the persecutions with the Iran-Contra, or the exposing of the Iran-Contra. One of the main journalists, he worked for the Associated Press, and he came out the day before yesterday, I believe, and said he had proof that the Ukraine government actually shot this plane down. He had satellite images from one of his sources, and this is a credible guy. He worked for Associated Press, this, that, and the other. And so I think that in itself is, should raise an eyebrow as well. But, besides that, everything I went over in my video, it's just unbelievable. The evidence is all there. I mean, the passports themselves, they didn't have a scratch on them. They were brand new.
So, can I interrupt for just 1 second? Those passports, was it true that they were taken out of some truck or something? Yes. I mean, there was. That's what I've seen, right?
So there's a video of it, and it was reported on by a Ukrainian news outlet, a television piece. Screenshots of this guy taking out a guy in an army suit, taking out these passports and putting them on the ground, and he put them in such a way that they were the same. You can tell each one was the same exact passports that Hoax Online was reporting on. Yeah, I'm serious. No, I'm serious.
But it was the Black Sun Thugs show the Black Sun Thugs showing.
No, I have a question though, dealing with the actual bodies. Now I've seen some of the images and stuff like that. It's very gruesome, of course, but from what I'm led to believe is that some of these bodies look like they were already in a state of
decomposition.
Decomposition, basically, meaning that they probably were already dead before they got hit by a missile, or if that's exactly.
I believe they were.
Do you honestly think those bodies were real? I mean, I've looked at them a couple of times.
That could be.
I think they were real, but ABC News did report that the rebels there encountered bodies that were already decomposing, like obviously already decomposing.
Brian, did you see the videos of the townspeople with holes in their roof and stuff, with like bodies that flew out of the sky, basically?
No, I haven't seen yet.
CNN reported on that the other day.
I'm pretty sure they used real bodies, because if they think about it. If they use dummies, for instance, who finds the dummies? How do they keep that a secret?
I didn't necessarily think that they were quote unquote dummies, but they did to me look an awful lot like what is called the hyper-realism models, which is done by a guy that doesn't live too. I think he lives in London, not so far away from the area, so to speak.
Well,
so
that
was just my opinion.
They almost had to be real bodies if they smelt of decomposition. But the question is, why were they decomposing immediately after the crash? It doesn't make any sense. They were drained of blood, and then also we had these fake passports which got exposed, went viral on the internet, and then right after that, the mainstream media, CNN, went from saying that there were 23 American victims to only 1. This is what popped up in my head. Now, maybe those passports got exposed. Maybe that wasn't supposed to get out, the fake passports or whatever. So those were supposed to be the American victims, and it could be that all those were actually, now this is complete speculation, but all those were actually maybe the hoax, right? Because every American PSYOP is a hoax now, right? I think some of the bodies were probably real, probably already dead, and then the passports might have been for the American propaganda that was going to be pushed on the public here.
That's a good observation. One thing that I was looking at is the Dutch element, because this is a huge part of the whole story, since the majority of the people on the plane were Dutch, and you see immediately the Dutch royals coming forth. They took all the relatives in to their wherever they have their meetings and stuff like that. And I was looking at some of those witnesses as well. One of the women that was on a couple different interviews was wearing a satanic sort of necklace, gold necklace as well. And I also found her sort of testimony, or her sort of what she was saying to the media, like she was, bring my body, or bring my sons, or the body home, sort of thing. And the fact that the Dutch are heavily involved in this should raise alarm bells, because when we think about the Bilderbergs, the Dutch are major players in the Bilderberg elite. Now that Queen Beatrix has, allowed her son to take over, but she was always a major player in this. And I see this as a major thing coming out of the Bilderberg group, because this is Europe. This is, this involves heating up the tensions in Ukraine to the point where there could be a major war happening.
There is a
This
major
could be
war
very
happening.
well their sort of plot to engage Russia or to really, stretch Russia to its limits, sort of thing. Attack it from different. I mean, we already know they're attacking it economically right now, and this could be just another attempt to really, put put the pressure on Putin.
Yeah, especially when Putin was leading the way with this BRICS agreement that they're moving away from the dollar more and more, right? And also
Right.
they signed a deal to create a new development bank to fund developing nations, the infrastructure there. And you know what that does? That puts these nations in debt and designates ownership via debt. And the IMF was always doing that, and now they have a competitor, BRICS, with their development bank going in and enslaving countries with debt. It's like the same exact thing, except it's an opposition force. It's a competition, and
It's exactly
that's a huge factor here, because I went in my video, I went into the fact that what's her name, Christine Lagarde from the IMF, gave that bizarre speech with she kept referring to the number 7 and said, yes, 7 has a significant importance in the occult world, this, that, and the other. And
she actually said that?
Yeah.
No, wait. She didn't use the word occult, but
No, she said something like, she didn't say occult, but she said, the power of the number 7 in numerology is very significant.
yeah. Look. I'm sorry, I had to interrupt you, Press. You'll continue. I just have to reiterate again. The fact that she actually mentions numerology in that speech to begin with is astounding. Right there is very, very telling. Just want to tell that to the audience. That's in of itself should be very revealing to you.
Well,
but yes.
we have to always, understand who we're dealing with and how they always telegraph these things. I mean, that is one of the ways of decoding these things, is finding all the numerology that goes with it. And this event, it has it in spades from what I've seen. I mean, it's really quite something.
Right.
Now, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. It's important to understand that, I got a lot of comments on my video saying, you had me up until the numerology part, and it's like, listen, it's been proven that these people believe, whether or not you believe in numerology, they believe in numerology, okay? They believe in astrology. They use these occult principles in a lot of their tactics and strategies. So whether or not you believe it, the fact of the matter is, it's part of how they operate, how they communicate, and how they plan their operations, and that's a fact. All right, we know that. I mean, going back in history, all these royals and all these elites always had astrologers and numerologists and planned things on certain dates and this, that, and the other. I mean, that's proven.
You don't even have to go back that far. Just go back as Ronald Reagan had
exactly.
astrologers.
It's true.
Even had his own personal medicine person.
Yeah, I saw that when people were commenting and saying and criticizing you for bringing up numerology. And then I actually responded to a few of these people. I said that very same thing. I said, wait a minute, Christine Lagarde brought up numerology, so go call her a psycho.
Right, exactly.
I think it's the problem though with Press Reset, myself, you, other people here that are have these channels. We bring in all different types. So we bring in types that are into all this and are aware of it, and then of course we bring in the types that have no clue and they're just following the sort of conspiracy angle to the whole thing. So you got to kind of expect that to come into the conversation.
Has anybody seen? Are you still talking about the plane? I had to get up for a minute. Are you still talking about the plane that went down or close to it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has anybody seen the high-ranking military official that they started out on Fox News, and he said the conspiracy theorists, okay, and he used that word, conspiracy theorists are going to be going nuts, saying the United States government shot down this plane. Now, I didn't think that at all at that point, okay? And one of my advisors, somebody I consult in a lot, I mentioned it, and he said the same thing I said. He wasn't thinking that, but just like the old saying, with George Bush, never or before. Never believe a conspiracy theorist, a conspiracy theory until it is officially denied. And then you remember George W. Bush saying, never let us tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories that attempt to shift blame away from, the perpetrators, right? So he said that. And I'm like, I never even gave it a second thought. But now, just for the fact that, you see, this is how far we've come, is that just for the fact that this high-ranking military guy comes on TV and says something like that, don't listen to the conspiracy theorists who are going to try to say the U.S. shot down the plane. And now, I don't know if you guys have looked into Clagle. I think it's Clagle, C-L-A-G. Basically, they're taking over the cartoon parts of a lot of the newspapers, and I'm going to try to do a story on this soon. And it's straight propaganda. All the newspapers are starting to pick up this as, their little cartoons that they put out there. And there's a whole story to that. But as far as what the point I was making about with the plane, man, did I lose my track? Let me think.
Well, it's important to understand that it wasn't the U.S. that shot the plane down. It was the Ukraine government, which is obviously backed by the U.S. NATO, right? The whole game.
Yeah, and I wasn't saying one way or another who exactly shot the plane down, but for the fact that they put it out there like that, and pretty much everybody and their mother in the mainstream is pointing their finger in one way or another, whether it's a roundabout way or not. They're saying, oh, it's Russia, Putin, and they're putting out that's where I was going with the Klagan thing. They're putting out these cartoons saying that, oh, Putin is the one who shot down the plane. They're trying to say that Russia is the one that shot down the plane, and I'm thinking to myself, my God, if the rest of the world realizes that if you want to use the terms 9/11 was an inside job, or you just don't believe the official story of it, and you see what this country, this United States federal government, is willing to do, you can't question.
This is why, though. I mean, we got to think bigger than countries. We really do, because this is why I say the Bilderbergs. This is why I say NATO, because look, it's Ukraine that's most likely shot down this plane. They had sent interceptors and probably hit it with missiles from those fighter planes itself, or hit it from their Buk, or whatever they call it, the Buk system that they employed. The Russians had already shown on videos. I mean, they had Russian officials come out and totally show satellite images and show where the Ukrainians had their anti-aircraft systems located and how they moved them. They also showed that the Ukrainian jets that pursued the plane itself. So they proved. I mean, and this thing too. I just saw on CBS News, where the CBS News was analyzing this, and they were saying, "Oh, look at what the Russians are saying. They're saying this and that and that." But you know what they're not saying? They're not saying, that it's Putin or it's Russia, and they're not saying that the missile that hit the plane is most definitely Russian and all this, right? So they're trying to spin it, of course, against Putin, against the Russians, and that's what we've got to expect. I mean, that probably was the plan all along. It's really difficult, I imagine, to carry out a type of false flag like this. This is an extremely complex false flag, in my opinion. I really believe it's a false flag. Now, people died, obviously.
Bringing the plane down with passengers? You
Pardon me?
Bringing this plane down with, what, 260, 280 passengers?
295.
Okay, 295. You think that would be beyond the realm of a country as far as pulling that off as a false flag?
No, not at all. I think it is a false flag. I think for sure. Okay. No. I mean, I think it's a NATO. I think it's a Bilderberg plan.
And I think we be that far off. That's like that's SOP. That's standard operating procedure. My God, they could do that for breakfast. That's nothing for these people.
Right? No, I think
I
it's
agree with you guys. Hey guys, if I could step in, we definitely need to wrap it up for the live show. I do want to appreciate everybody being here. Mark, I'm very happy you were able to join us. If you want to learn more about Mark, you can go to his website, markstevens.net, and pick up his books, Ventures in Legal Land and Government Indicted. And I'd also like to thank Anthony for joining us. Anthony's website is Antonello. See, I do it every time. I cannot speak. Antonello.com. And also be sure to check us out on maxresistance.com. Again, thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you guys next week.
Great.
All right. Thanks.
Great to talk to you guys.
Awesome.
Great.
Justin, get me on Skype. I want to talk to you more.